Hello everybody and welcome to a sequel or reboot or something, I don't know what you would want to call it, of a video that I did probably about 5 years ago here on the channel, going through my entire physical media collection. I think I did one update video since then, but when I asked people what they would want to see for the celebration of my 1000th video, which was just recently released here on the channel, there were a lot of people that said, we want to see a physical media collection video. And instead of going back and trying to backtrace, well, what have I done? What have I not done? Let's just start fresh and do it all from the top. And it's crazy to me that people like this, but it's also kind of cool because I'm always interested to see what movies people have on their shelves. And there have been some changes from my last one, some additions, some subtractions, movies they don't have anymore. So let's go over my physical media collection, which I keep very dutifully alphabetized. And I start with the numbers. The first one is 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is, part of the Cloverfield franchise. I enjoy this movie. I think it's very good. I think John Goodman's very good in that movie. Criterion Collection of 12 Angry Men. If you have not seen this movie, it's one of the best movies ever made. Sidney Lumet directed this film, and I highly recommend it. Fantastic movie. 21 Jump Street, one of the great modern comedies, I think, of the last, let's say, golly, how long has it been since that movie came out? Let's say 15 to 20 years. I really, really like this movie a lot. 22 Jump Street, one of the rare comedy sequels that also measures up to the original. I like this movie a lot. 28 Days Later, newly relevant. Now, it's interesting to me that they put out, I've had this for a while. It was hard to find 28 Days Later for a while on physical media. It's interesting to me that they put it out on Blu-ray and high definition because 28 Days Later, the movie, was not shot in high definition. So it's really just kind of in name only because you can't get an HD picture out of that movie. 28 Weeks Later, you can. I like this movie. I know a lot of people aren't so hot on it or high on it, but I enjoy this movie. I think it's a good sequel. It's not a great movie, but I think it's a good sequel. 300. For those of you that say that I've never liked anything that Zack Snyder has done, I enjoy 300. I think it's a really good visual film and a good action movie, so I have it on Blu-ray. This is the first 4K, I think, of the collection so far. 1917, which I believe was my pick for my favorite movie that year that it came out, which was 2019, I think, the pre-COVID year. 1917, fantastic film. It's not just a gimmick, it's also a really good movie. I own 500 Days of Summer. I don't know exactly when I acquired this film, but I do own it, and I haven't watched it in quite some time. I remember liking it the first time I saw it, but it's been a while. 2001: A Space Odyssey. If you're going to own the movie, I think you should own it in 4K. I think one of the most visionary movies ever made. Some people don't like it. They think it's too slow. I enjoyed it. I think it's a good movie. About a Boy. Hugh Grant, my beloved Toni Collette, little tiny Nicholas Hoult. This is a movie from 2003, 2004. If you haven't seen it, it's a really sweet little movie, like a kind of a romantic comedy. It's just a nice story, just a nice movie. Like one of those movies that's like, it's just nice. About Schmidt, Jack Nicholson, one of his best, if not his best, late career performance about a father whose daughter is getting married and he's having to deal with that and all kinds of stuff. This one really packs a punch when you get to the end of it. The Abyss on 4K. I have actually not had a chance to watch this yet. I've heard that some people are disappointed by James Cameron's 4K transfers, but I can't really pass judgment on The Abyss as of right now. Ace in the Hole, Criterion Collection, one of the great, not a movie that I think is mentioned when we talk about the classics of the 1950s, but if you haven't seen Ace in the Hole, I highly recommend it. If you've never heard of it, just give it a shot. Just watch it. Don't even look into what it's about. Just watch it. Adaptation, one of the great meta films of the early 21st century, written by Charlie Kaufman, starring Charlie and Donald Kaufman, a.k.a. Nicolas Cage. Some Oscar wins for that movie. We got The Addams Family, the original live-action movie adaptation. What a great cast on that one. I haven't seen the recent animated film. Of course, Wednesday kind of has revived some interest in The Addams Family. Of course, if you have The Addams Family, you also have to have Addams Family Values, which is another sequel that compares favorably to the original film. The Adventures of Batman. I picked this up. I think it was on special or something. The Casey Kasem doing the voice of Robin. I think it's from the 70s. I just like Batman. I'm a big fan of Batman, and I'm a collector of Batman things. AI, artificial intelligence. This is on Blu-ray. Now, there's a lot of stuff that I haven't upgraded from 4K. This is one of them because 4Ks are just so dang expensive. I do not have the money to upgrade everything that I have from Blu-ray to 4K. It took me years and years and years to update everything from DVD to Blu-ray. Air Force One, Harrison Ford, what a stupid movie this is. Just a dumb, dumb movie. But a great example of if you have an actor like Harrison Ford and an actor like Gary Oldman who take dumb, dumb movies seriously, then you can make a dumb, dumb movie feel serious, even though it is still a very dumb movie. Airplane, one of the great comedies of all time. I should probably invest in a better version of this, but the movie doesn't change. It's still one of the best comedies ever made. Airplane 2, the sequel, not one of the best comedies ever made, but not half bad. I've seen worse. Akira on Blu-ray. I bought this, I think, to tie into, we were doing it for Dan's Movie Club over on Patreon one month, and I was like, well, let's just get Akira. And I'm glad that I got it, because this is a really good example of early anime. For a long time, it was like the only anime movie that people knew about, which is crazy now that anime is like such a huge thing. Aladdin, the original Disney animated classic. It's a classic for a reason. Robin Williams, one of his greatest performances of all time. Love Aladdin. Saw it in the theater when I was a kid. Then I got a couple of Alfred Hitchcock box sets. This one is on Blu-ray. And it has, let's see, what does it have on here? Rear Window, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho, and The Birds. Not too shabby. And then I have, it's basically the same movies again on 4K. Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, and The Birds on 4K. So this one does not have North by Northwest. So the Blu-ray one I bought years and years ago, I invested in these movies on 4K. Because really, these movies, I mean, those 4 Hitchcock movies, 4 of the best movies he ever made. Alien. Ooh, this is an old one. This is an old Blu-ray. I have not updated it to 4K yet. So Alien on Blu-ray, the original. I think that has the director's cut on it too. And then Aliens, also I have not yet upgraded from Blu-ray to 4K. Again, partially because I've heard mixed things about James Cameron's transfer of the movie. This has the theatrical version and the special edition on it, so you get the turret sequence. Or if you just want to watch the theatrical version, Aliens, one of those rare movies that I think is just as good whichever version you choose to watch. All About Eve on the Criterion Collection, one of the best screenplays ever written. Great performances. You'll see that I have a lot of Criterions in my collection, and that is because I take advantage of the 50% off sales. I get those email alerts, and I literally hold money back. I budget for the Criterion 50% off sale. All the President's Men, of course, we lost Robert Redford earlier this year, one of the great political dramas of the 1970s, and it's all based on real life. And it's crazy how soon after Watergate this movie came out, the fact that it was adapting things, not quite in real time, but almost in real time. Almost Famous, Cameron Crowe. This is the director's cut, so I think it's called like Untitled. I actually like this director's cut. It's for enthusiasts only. I think if you haven't seen Almost Famous, watch the theatrical version, but this director's cut is good. If you already know the movie, you know the characters. This is Amadeus. This is the director's cut, which I don't think is as good as the theatrical cut. It's not better longer, but I think there may be the theatrical version. It might be available now, but for a long time, this was the only version of the movie you could get on Blu-ray. Amadeus, by the way, another fantastic movie from the 1980s. Amazing Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man 2. Why I own these movies, I'm not sure. It may have to do with the Schmodown. I had to study for the Schmodown, and these were on sale for cheap. I like The Amazing Spider-Man. I'm not a huge fan of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. My guess is that this was a very well-priced 2-pack, and it was like, well, why not? Andrew Garfield's great. It's kind of worth it for Andrew Garfield. This is a great box set from Criterion. I will only buy the box sets when they're on sale. So this is the America Lost and Found, the BBS story box set. And this is really these are some of the movies that revolutionized cinema in the 1970s. So you have Head, Easy Rider, 5 Easy Pieces, Drive, he said, A Safe Place, The Last Picture Show, and The King of Marvin Gardens. So this is a great late 60s, really early 70s primer on the new wave of cinema in the United States. American Beauty, tougher watch than it was maybe, let's say, 10 years ago, but a Best Picture winner. I think I own this because I had it on DVD at one point, and I upgraded everything I had. I honestly have not watched this movie in quite some time, but I have it, so, if I wanted to watch it, I could. American Crime Story. I have some TV mixed in with the movies. This is the only season of American Crime Story that I have. This is the OJ season, The People versus OJ Simpson. I quite enjoy this. I think it was a good dramatization of the O.J. Simpson trial. I remembered a lot of those events. There are some nutball performances in this, but also some pretty good drama. Sarah Paulson is fantastic in this. Yeah, I enjoy that. I don't own a lot of TV, though, because now, I bought this, I think even pre-streaming, like before Disney Plus and all that. Now there's so many TV shows that you can watch on streaming. I mean, you can watch all the American Crime Stories, I'm sure, on Hulu. It's hard to justify buying it because it's like, well, I could just watch it. American Psycho, one of the great misunderstood films of the early 21st century. Christian Bale, criminally overlooked for his performance in this film. I quite enjoy it. I think it is a great piece of social satire and remains popular. I like that I still see this movie in the zeitgeist. Like, one of the most popular gifts that I see is from like the business card scene. Like, this movie has endured. An American Tail. This movie holds a special place in my heart. This is the first movie I ever remember seeing in a theater. I went and saw it with my grandmother. It's a Don Bluth animated film about a mouse named Fievel that comes to America. It's an immigrant story, and it's just a really cute movie. An American Werewolf in London. Very different movie from An American Tail. Would not make a very good double feature, but one of the... this is a great mix of horror and comedy. I like this movie quite a bit. It's a, I wouldn't say annual Halloween watch, but I'd say like 1 out of 3 Halloweens I'm going to put on An American Werewolf in London. Anatomy of a Fall, Criterion Collection. Ooh, I love this movie. Came out a couple years ago. One of my favorite movies that year. Courtroom drama, a mystery, fantastic performances, a great use of a 50 Cent song. All around, just good stuff. Good international cinema. I have some, and I don't have as much international cinema as I should, but Anatomy of a Fall is one of my favorite comedies of the 21st century. Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy. This is the unrated version, but not the one that's like all alternate takes from when they shot like the whole movie twice, but still good. Still haven't seen Angel Has Fallen. I own it, never watched it. I liked Olympus Has Fallen, and I watched London Has Fallen, and I bought Angel Has Fallen because I think it was like $5, but I never watched it. Animal House, National Lampoon's Animal House. Love this movie. I think it's hilarious. I don't know if it is a comedy that still like connects to people younger than me, of which now there are many, many, many. But I like it. John Belushi alone, one of the great one-movie comedic performances. Annabelle Comes Home. I have a lot of the other Conjuring films in a box set, and I think I probably bought this again because it was $5, and I hadn't seen it, and I still haven't seen it, but it's on my shelf. I don't have a whole lot of movies that I haven't seen on my shelf, but I do have some. I have a number of them. Annihilation, Alex Garland. Not a whole lot of people dug this movie when it came out, but I dug it when it came out. I think it is a weird, trippy movie, and a lot of times I don't go for weird, trippy movies, but I went for this one. Ant-Man, starring Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I have every MCU film up through Spider-Man Far From Home, and then I stopped because they just weren't as good anymore. But I do have the complete MCU up through that point, and a couple ones after them. You'll see them. That's why I own Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't think I've watched it, but I am a completionist, and I was collecting all the other films, and so I'm like, well, I need to get Ant-Man and the Wasp. I waited. I don't buy the ones that I'm like not dying for. I'll wait till they go on sale, but I did eventually buy this movie on 4K. Just how it goes. The Apartment by Billy Wilder. What a good movie this is. A great New Year's Eve watch if you haven't seen it. Jack Lemmon, Shirley MacLaine, a rom-com before we knew to start calling them rom-coms. The Apocalypse Now triple feature. So this is Apocalypse Now, the original, the theatrical cut. Apocalypse Now Redux or Redo. And then the, I believe this is the Hearts of Darkness documentary, which is fascinating about the making of this movie. So all three are on that disc. And then I also have a separate version of Apocalypse Now, which is Apocalypse Now and Apocalypse Now Read. I think I owned one of these before the other. I'm guessing I owned this one first, and then I bought the triple feature because it had Hearts of Darkness on it. So there's really no reason to own two versions of Apocalypse Now, but I sure do. Apollo 11, if you haven't seen it, great documentary about the moon landing. That's all original archive footage and news reporting and mission control audio. There's no narration. There's no interviews. It's all just kind of like a compilation of archive footage. A really kind of unique way to approach a documentary, and I really enjoyed it. I skipped Apollo 12, but I did also buy Apollo 13, which is not made up of compilations, but is actually a really good movie starring Tom Hanks. This is the 20th anniversary edition, so that means that this would have come out in 2016, and we just did the 30th anniversary, so I've had that for about 10 years now. Arachnophobia. I like this movie. I actually didn't see it when I was a kid because I was too young, but the posters scared me, and the video box scared me, and then when I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's pretty good. John Goodman. You're going to hear me say this a lot. John Goodman, also great in that movie, as John Goodman is great in just about every movie. Arrival, Denis Villeneuve. What a good movie this is. Kind of a ponderous ending, but it all works. It's the intersection of science fiction and beauty. This one, I think, as good as it gets, is a movie I liked. I could not find it on Blu-ray for the longest time, and I believe at one point there was a call to salvage some items if you wanted them from the Screen Junkies set. I don't want to say that that's exactly what happened, but that is my memory. I was given permission. I did not do it without permission, but I salvaged As Good as It Gets on Blu-ray. So don't tell anyone other than the potentially thousands of people that are watching this. Asteroid City, Wes Anderson. I don't love all of Wes Anderson's films, and a lot of people didn't love this one, but I liked it. I thought it was fun. And again, I just waited a while till it was at a reasonable price and bought it because I enjoy it. Got a 3-pack of the Austin Powers movies. I think all 3 of them have really funny parts. I think that they are consistently funny in the order in which they came out. Although Spy Who Shagged Me is probably as funny as the first Austin Powers film. And then Goldmember is spontaneously funny, but when it is funny, it's very funny. So I like all 3. Avatar. This is a big honkin' version of Avatar. I don't know why I eventually bought this. I think maybe I was rewatching all of James Cameron's films for a ranking video or for the Schmodown or something, and I realized I didn't have Avatar, and it was on sale because it had been out for like 10 plus years by the time I got this. So I have Avatar, and I've watched it exactly one time. I don't have The Way of Water because I don't watch Avatar movies at home. I just happened to find that one. All right, we got to run here. MCU films. We got The Avengers, the first movie. Everybody knows that movie. We have Avengers, Age of Ultron, the second Avengers film. Everybody knows that movie. We have Avengers Infinity War, the third Avengers movie. Really successful, the most successful Avengers movie until the next one. And then we have the next one, which is Avengers Endgame, which I still really love. I need to give this one a rewatch. It's been a couple years. I know it's long, but I enjoy this. What a way to end the MCU. And little did we know how inconsistent the MCU would get after that. The Aviator. Great Scorsese film. Great DiCaprio performance. Nothing bad to say about this movie. Won an Oscar for Cate Blanchett. It's about old Hollywood. That also is right up my alley. The Babadook. This is kind of in league with Hereditary. Jennifer Kent, her performance in this movie, underrated. Should have been more awards recognized. Scared the crap out of me when I first saw it. I like this movie. Haven't seen it in a while because it's very stressful to watch this film for a number of reasons. Baby Driver, Edgar Wright, love Edgar Wright. Again, certain elements more difficult to watch than other elements, but I love the editing in this film. What a great action director Edgar Wright is. So this is fun to watch just for the car chases. Back to the Future on 4K. I think they got a new fancy version that just came out this year that I did not purchase, but I do like those movies. They are childhood classics of mine, and I've got all 3 in high definition. Backdraft, Ron Howard. Don't know how many people know about this movie, but it's a pretty solid drama about firefighting. De Niro, Kurt Russell, big cast. A lot of people that you've heard of in this cast. There's a Baldwin in there too. Bad Boys, the first movie, is pretty good. Again, I think it was $5. I got it because it was $5. Bad Boys 2, same thing. I don't love it as much as other people do, but I still think it's enjoyable. It's a good action movie. Too long, but it's a Michael Bay action movie, so that's to be expected. Bad Times at the El Royale. Not a popular movie at the box office. I think this might have been the movie that introduced me to Cynthia Erivo, maybe. I have to go back and think. I don't know if it counts as a sleeper, but if you haven't seen it, it's a good little kind of modern noir film. Box set of Band of Brothers that aired on HBO. Again, I bought this. I know exactly where I got this. I got this at Amoeba in Los Angeles in a pre-HBO Max era when it was actually like, I might want to watch Band of Brothers someday. And this box set's at a good price. Now, I'm pretty sure you could just watch it on HBO Max, but I didn't know that the streaming revolution was coming, or I would have waited. Bandits. Billy Bob Thornton, Cate Blanchett, Bruce Willis. Great comedy. If you haven't seen it, again, somewhat obscure, not a huge box office hit. I like this movie. It's about these con men, and they start working with a lady, and they both like her, and it's a good film. I like it. A more recent film, The Banshees of Inisherin, with Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. It's kind of a heartbreaking story about friendship and the weird ways that we define friendship. I like that movie. I think it was in my top 2 or 3 a couple years ago when it came out. Barry Lyndon by Stanley Kubrick. I didn't see this movie until, I'd say, 5 to 8 years ago. I'd always heard about it, and I love it. I know that Criterion's put out, I think, a 4K version of this. I have not invested in that as of yet, but Barry Lyndon, really good film. A long movie, but good if you like ridiculous people. Batman the movie, this is the one that is tied to the Adam West series. Like this movie a lot. It's stupid, it's corny, it's everything that Michael Keaton and Tim Burton made Batman not, but I enjoy this for what it is. And then we got a run of Batman movies. Batman 89 with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. I generally don't like the artwork on any of these 4K movies, but that's a running theme. I generally don't like the artwork on any modern Blu-rays or 4Ks unless it's the poster of the movie. I don't know why you need to do these weird reimaginings. Batman Returns, this all came from the same set. Many people like this as a Christmas movie. Joe Starr loves this movie. I think it's his favorite Batman movie. I enjoy it. It's not my favorite, but I like it. It's fun. Michelle Pfeiffer particularly, again, overlooked when it comes to awards for her performance as Catwoman. She's great in that movie. All right, behind the scenes magic. I went and got more movies, and I also rolled up my sleeves because this is actually, I'm working up a bit of a sweat doing this, but let's keep going. Let's keep looking at movies. Batman the Animated Series, Blu-ray set. I love Batman the Animated Series, a keystone film or show of my childhood. One of the best iterations of Batman ever. Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. Speaking of rest in peace, Kevin Conroy, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, the feature adaptation, criminally low box office. They just kind of dumped it off. Didn't really tell anybody what they were doing. Great movie. These are in chronological order, I think, the Batman movies. Batman Forever, Val Kilmer. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones hated each other on the set of this movie, but they worked very well on screen. Batman and Robin, George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of the greatest / worst movie villain performances of all time, ended that particular iteration of the Batman series and brought us Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan, Christian Bale. I love this movie. I think it's really, really good. We did not know what was to come with The Dark Knight that was following. Listen, I own it. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. And I've gone on record saying that this is a much better movie than the theatrical version. So, get off my back about it. The Batman, shocked that we don't have a sequel to this movie yet. I like it. I think it's good. I'm not so sure about Paul Dano, but not in a Quentin Tarantino way. I recognize that he's a good actor. He's just on a very specific frequency in this one. Batman The Dark Knight Returns. I think this is actually a pretty decent animated adaptation of the graphic novel. I enjoy this one. I did a whole ranking video of Batman movies, and so I bought a lot of them because I wanted to see them, and I thought I'd like them, and I was glad to have this one. The Batman run continues with Batman The Long Halloween Part 1 and Batman The Long Halloween Part 2. I think this is one of the better DC animated Batman movies. In case you can't tell, I am a big fan of Batman. Batman Under the Red Hood, I did not like as much as many other people did. I don't dislike it, but it's not like, as I recall, I could be wrong. I remember this not being like up in my top tier of Batman films, but I did like it, and it's a good story. This one surprised me. I actually like this one quite a bit, Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This has no business being good, and I actually think it's somewhat enjoyable. All right, back to the Criterion Collection. We're done with Batman. The Battle of Algiers. I didn't see this until I think maybe last year or the year before, and I immediately bought it. Just a great movie, and so influential. You don't know how influential this movie was until you watch it and you realize that Tarantino took a lot from this movie. The visual style of it and everything else. I think one of the most influential movies ever made. We have a Best Picture winner here, A Beautiful Mind, starring Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly. Jennifer Connelly won an Oscar. Beauty and the Beast, the animated version. I have a lot of the original animated Disney classics and not a lot of the live-action remakes. Take for that what you will. Oh, The Beekeeper. Yes, I own The Beekeeper. Yes, The Beekeeper is on my shelf. And yes, I will probably pull this movie off the shelf before I pull off some of the amazing movies I've already talked about, because this movie is ridiculous, it's stupid, and I may have already watched it 1 or 2 times. It's dumb, but good dumb. The Before trilogy from Richard Linklater. Someday I'm just going to book off a day and open a bottle of wine, turn on the fireplace, and just watch all 3 of these movies. I've never watched all 3 at once, but it's a great trilogy. And Richard Linklater's first experiment with, Did I show you the back of that instead of the front? I don't know. Maybe I showed you the back of that. There's the front of it. Richard Linklater's first experiment with making people make a movie for their entire lives. Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, Sidney Lumet's last film. Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of his best performances. I've talked this movie up so many times. If you haven't seen this movie, it's great. You should seek it out. Being John Malkovich, Criterion Collection. Incredible movie. Part of that class of 1999. Blew my mind as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid. Helped me redefine what cinema could be, along with a lot of other movies that year. Being There, Criterion Collection. Great performance from Peter Sellers, one of his late career performances, and just a kind of a ridiculous comedy, class satire, all of that kind of thing. He's really good in it. Belfast. I want to say that this was either sent to me during awards season. Sometimes they'll send me movies that I will put on the shelf or not put on the shelf, or it was discounted. But I like this movie. Kenneth Branagh, a very personal film for him. Some really good performances. If you didn't see Belfast, if you missed it, I think it came out 2021, something like that. Best in Show, Christopher Guest, one of the best mockumentaries out there. Never fails to make me laugh. I cannot watch the dog show, the actual dog show now, without thinking of that movie. Beverly Hills Cop, Eddie Murphy, one of the great comedic performances of all time. I like this movie a lot. Great 80s comedy. Eddie Murphy, I don't even know if he was at the peak of his powers, but he was approaching it. Big, starring Tom Hanks. Creepy if you think about it at times, but also very, very funny. I like that movie. And then The Big Lebowski. John Goodman's great in this film, as he has been, I think, in every other movie I've talked about with John Goodman. But of course, Jeff Bridges, the star of the show. Steve Buscemi. Every cast, every member, every line of dialogue, so much about this movie. It's crazy how much of it has become iconic. It's like every scene has something that people still talk about. And it's proof to show that how a movie does or how it's received when it first comes out, that's not necessarily what the legacy of that movie is going to be, because Big Lebowski, not very popular when it was first released. The Big Short. Finance has never been as riveting as it is in this movie. Great cast, multi-Oscar nominee. One of those movies that was up for a lot of Oscars, but I think maybe isn't necessarily always in the conversation, but very relevant to that time and any time. The Big Sick. Great movie from Kumail Nanjiani and Emily V. Gordon and Michael Showalter. Very funny movie. One of my favorite jokes of all time is in this movie. It's in the scene between Ray Romano and Kumail Nanjiani in the cafeteria, I believe, at the hospital. If you've seen it, you know what joke that is. Big Trouble in Little China. I own this movie. This is another Joe Starr special. He loves this movie. I think it's okay. I bought it because it was cheap and because I will watch it occasionally, but I'm not as big on the movie as a lot of other people. This is something that Shout put out, and I actually upgraded. This is the Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Collection, which is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey with a lot of special features. I don't know if I've really tucked into all the special features on this yet, but I got it. I love Shout. I love all of the kind of boutique labels that put out these special editions. Arrow. Bill and Ted Face the Music. I liked this movie. I haven't rewatched it since the pandemic. Maybe it's a 2020 special where I was just so starved for movies, but I enjoyed it probably because I like the other Bill and Ted movies. I watched them when I was a kid. I like to see all of the different characters. Ooh, Birdemic, Shock and Terror. One of the best bad movies ever made. And the reason it's a great bad movie is because everyone that was making it, or at least the director and writer of the movie, thought that he was making one of the best movies ever made. That is a recipe for a great bad movie. Birds of Prey, I do own. This is more kind of in my completionist era. Not that I do enjoy this movie, but it just kind of goes to show you how more affordable discs were even just a few years ago, because now I doubt that it would ever go on sale to a price where I would say, like, yeah, I'll pick up Birds of Prey. Speaking of, Black Adam. Again, I didn't hate this movie as much as everybody else did, but it must have really been on sale because I can tell you I would not have shelled out more than $10 to $12 for Black Adam, and that is a stretch. So put your discs back on sale is I guess what I'm saying, studios, because I don't collect as many because they so rarely do. You got to move these things. How many Black Adams are sitting on a shelf because you're trying to sell it for like $17.99? Drop it down to $7.99, I'll buy it. Sure. Black Panther made a lot of history in the MCU, made a lot of box office history, and it's a movie I enjoy, even if the third act is largely a cartoon. Black Phone. You know, I still haven't seen Black Phone 2, and shame on me, because I liked this movie. I liked Ethan Hawke. I liked Mason Thames. I liked Madeline McGraw. I thought it was really solid, but I just never got around to seeing the sequel. I got to do it. I think I can watch it at home now. Black Swan. Natalie Portman won an Academy Award for this movie. Great from Darren Aronofsky. Psychological thriller. Mila Kunis. What's going on between those two? Nobody really knows. Black Klansman. Spike Lee won an Academy Award for this movie, and rightfully so. Part of the sort of initial Adam Driver craze, where he was just in like every good movie that was coming out. Topher Grace, super creepy. John David Washington, early movie from him as well. I like Black Klansman. This is one that I owe a rewatch because it's been a while. One of the many different versions of Blade Runner. This is the final cut. I think this is the one that you should probably get. This is why I have it on 4K. I like Blade Runner. I'm not as into it as everyone else. It's more of an impressive technical film for me. This is the one I'm more into, and I'm more into it than most people, which is Blade Runner 2049. I love this movie more actually than the original Blade Runner, which I know is heresy to some people, but that's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. The Blair Witch Project. I just rewatched this a couple months ago for my box office video about the most successful horror movies of all time, and I have to say it is more interesting to me as an historical relic. I don't think it necessarily holds up as well as a horror movie. It's not bad, but it's not as groundbreaking now as it was obviously back then. Blazing Saddles, one of the best comedies ever made. People say you couldn't make this movie today. I think you absolutely could because this movie is making fun of racists. It's not making fun of the people that are being subjected to racism. It's making fun of racists, and that's why it's funny, and that's why you could make it today. Blind Spotting. This is a really good movie. I don't know, again, this was a smaller film at the time. I don't know if it has been kind of lost in the shuffle, but if you haven't seen Blind Spotting, it's a very, very good movie, very powerful film, and I think there was actually a TV show that they made about this movie. Blood Simple from the Coen brothers. I believe it was their first movie. This is a Criterion collection, and it's a great movie. Frances McDormand is running from Emmett Walsh, who plays this kind of slimy private investigator. Just a modern noir film. Great to see from the early Coens. Blowout, starring John Travolta and Nancy Allen, I want to say. I just watched this movie a few months ago. Brian De Palma film. It's a take on Blow Up, and I loved this movie. And talk about, this movie came out in the 70s, I want to say, early 80s, 81. And I hadn't really read much about the movie. One of the movie endings, I didn't see it coming. I got to say, still surprised me. So Blowout still surprising me over 40 years after it came out. Blue Velvet, rest in peace, David Lynch. So many movies in this collection for people that passed away this year. I'm not always on David Lynch's wavelength, but I do like Blue Velvet, and Dennis Hopper is insane in it, and Isabella Rossellini and Kyle MacLachlan are great. The Blues Brothers, great musical comedy crime film. This is just a fun one to watch. I like to put on the Blues Brothers just to sort of, it's a vibe. It's a mood. It's a funny movie. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I like this movie a lot. That's why I bought it. It's not one of the, I didn't buy it just because it was cheap. I enjoy it. I think it's a fun murder mystery about a bunch of idiots who are locked in a house together. And I rewatched this, I think, year before last for my A24 horror video and still liked it. So I'm higher on this than a lot of people. That's okay. Bohemian Rhapsody. Quite honestly, if they had marketed a Blu-ray next to this one that was just the last 25 minutes of Bohemian Rhapsody and sold it for the same price, I would have bought that instead. But the only way to get the last 25 minutes of Bohemian Rhapsody is to buy the whole movie. So I did. But Rami Malek is great in the movie, even though the editing in it is very weird. Bonnie and Clyde, one of the most important and influential movies of the late 1960s, helped to usher in that new era that's kind of the America Lost and Found era that we were talking about, those BBS films. Ooh, what a train wreck. The Book of Henry. Some say this movie may have lost Colin Trevorrow his Star Wars movie. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but this movie is a mess, and I'm here for every minute of it. I can promise you, if you don't know anything about the Book of Henry, there is no chance in hell that you are ever going to guess what's going to happen next. Booksmart introduced me to Caitlin Dever, I want to say, and Beanie Feldstein. Fun little comedy from, 2018, I want to say, 2019, maybe earlier than that, maybe later. I like this movie a lot. Very funny. I still like teen comedies, even though I'm not a teen whatsoever. The Bourne Identity, I've got some older versions of this. So the first movie with Matt Damon, everybody thought that it was going to be crazy. Matt Damon in an action movie? That's ridiculous. Turned out to be great. Bourne Supremacy, even better than the first movie. Maybe the peak of the Bourne films made me sick because I was stuck in second row seats and I couldn't see most of what was going on. The Bourne Ultimatum, ending the whole trilogy, the Matt Damon trilogy, until they brought him back for a fourth one. I like all three of these movies. They're great spy movies. Bowling for Columbine on Criterion. I got this largely because I owned it on DVD. I do think that this is, important for the time, for the era, because it's a big Oscar winner. Obviously, in the years since, some of Michael Moore's storytelling, if you want to call it, choices, or perhaps looseness with the facts have been called into question, and those are legitimate questions to be asked. Boyhood, Richard Linklater, another movie about making a movie for your entire life. This was, I think, I named it my favorite movie of 2014, and it is still one of my favorites. If I were going to go back, I might put Whiplash in there instead of Boyhood. It was pretty close back then, but I still like Boyhood. I think it's a good movie. From Boyhood to Boys in the Hood, kind of the polar opposite experience culturally from Boyhood, but another amazing movie. John Singleton really knocked it out of the park with this film. Ice Cube, I don't know if this was his first acting role. It was one of his first. Every actor in this movie is great. One of the most culturally significant and influential films of the early 1990s, and really sort of a time capsule of that era, and still, again, relevant to today. Braveheart, starring Mel Gibson in one of the worst Scottish accents ever, Best Picture winner that many people did not see coming, was not a particularly big box office hit, but a good movie. And, if you like bad Scottish accents and fighting in the mud, then that's the movie for you. The Breakfast Club, Criterion Collection. I love that Criterion branches out and does a whole bunch of different movies because I like having this movie with all the special features and bells and whistles. I think they do a great job. Obviously, one of the biggest, most iconic movies of the 1980s. Breaking Bad, the complete series. They did sell these in like a barrel, like a yellow barrel, like they would melt the bodies in, but that was like a limited edition and I didn't get it. So I just have the regular box set. Again, pre-streaming, but this is another show that I'm just kind of glad to have on physical media. It's like owning your favorite book. Like you could have it on a Kindle, but it's nice to have it on the shelf. Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard. Richard Linklater made a movie about the making of this movie called Nouvelle Vague, which is on Netflix right now. I quite enjoyed this film. Again, if you want to talk about one of the most influential movies of all time, this is the movie. Kind of a crime, lovers in love, doing crimes and stuff. I need to rewatch that. I liked it a lot. The Bridge on the River Kwai. Yes, it's a very, very, very long movie, but it's also a very, very, very good movie. If you haven't seen it, people are put off by the length of movies like this. Great movies are neither too long nor too short. They're as long as they need to be. I think Bridge on the River Kwai is as long as it needs to be. Brokeback Mountain, one of the great Oscar robberies of all time that it did not win Best Picture. A beautiful story between Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger. I think that it was not, it didn't help that it came out when it did culturally, and I don't think the marketing helped that movie, but both of those guys, and Heath Ledger especially. God. Bruce Lee, his greatest hits. I think I had only seen Enter the Dragon before I bought this box set, but there was a category on the wheel in the Schmodown. I think Bruce Lee may have been his own category, or martial arts films were a category, and I was like, the Criterion Collection sale came around, and I was like, you know what, I might pick these up because I've always heard they were great. What a great time I had with this box set. Let's see. You've got The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, The Way of the Dragon, Enter the Dragon, and Game of Death. I had a great 2 or 3 days just watching these movies. Again, most of them for the first time. What a phenomenal athlete and performer and everything else Bruce Lee was. That was so much fun watching those movies. Bullet, starring Steve McQueen, one of the best car chases of all time. Again, for a long time this was considered one of the best action movies of all time, but I don't know if it's still in the conversation. I hope it is because it's a very good movie. The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks and directed by Joe Dante. I bought this as a reminder of my own failure because I had a big Schmodown match that I lost to John Roker because I did not know who directed The Burbs. Luckily, it's not just punishing myself. It's also a very funny comedy. Again, not appreciated when it came out. But I think more appreciated today. But yes, also a reminder of my own failure. Burn After Reading from the Coen brothers. A lot of people didn't know what to make of this movie. I think it's really fun. People say that it seems kind of pointless. I think that is kind of the point. And that cast, just a stacked cast. J.K. Simmons and Tilda Swinton, everybody else. Brad Pitt, George Clooney. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Once again, rest in peace, Robert Redford. Paul Newman, of course, has been gone for a while. The Sundance Film Festival, which is where I'm headed next month, got its name from this movie. So this movie made its mark on film history, and it's just such a great movie. Funny, great Western, romance elements. One of those kind of catch-all movies that you don't necessarily see so much anymore. Cabin in the Woods, much delayed. Chris Hemsworth being cast as Thor, I think, got this movie finally put into theaters. I think it's a really good kind of takedown, breakdown of horror movies, and in many ways set the tone for a lot of what we would see over the next decade. Caddyshack, Dumb comedy, stupid comedy. Baby Ruth floating in the swimming pool, Bill Murray fighting a gopher, I don't care. Rodney Dangerfield particularly, Ted Knight particularly in this movie, they both make me laugh, and that's what I love about this cast, is they're all operating on a different frequency, so if you're not laughing at one of them, you're probably laughing at one of the other ones. Call Me By Your Name, one of the first times that people saw little Timothy Chalamet, and said, oh, this kid's got something. I honestly think he maybe should have won Best Actor that year because I think he's phenomenal in this film. Armie Hammer, obviously some other stuff has come out, and it's a tricky film. Subject matter-wise, it's a tricky film, but the performances are great. And Luca Guadagnino, of course, has gone on to make a lot of other films. Candyman, golly, rest in peace, Tony Todd. Goodness gracious, so many people this year that we've lost or within the last year. Again, this is a horror film that I didn't necessarily have a whole lot of familiarity with before, let's say, 5 to 8 years ago, but I loved it when I first saw it. And again, if you want to tie it back to society and culture and the stuff that Jordan Peele would later kind of revive many years later, it's all right there in Candyman. Cape Fear from Martin Scorsese. Robert De Niro is so good in this movie. He's swinging for the fences, but I think he hits the ball. I think he hits a home run, and it's a great kind of take on a classic horror film or whatever you want to call it, thriller. Captain America: The First Avenger introduced us to Chris Evans. We all thought that we'd seen the last of him as Steve Rogers, but apparently that's not the case. But this was the first we saw of him as Steve Rogers. I'm not as high on this movie, but one of the great things about the MCU is I think the MCU and what happened in it makes this movie better. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, man. Most people did not expect a whole lot out of this movie, and the Russo brothers came in and blew us all away and then would go on to have the run of the MCU. This is also a 3D Blu-ray. I don't know if you can see that. This is one of the rare times where they were selling mass market physical media in 3D, so I have a few 3D movies. Captain America: Civil War, not really a Captain America movie, more of an Avengers movie, but still a good one. I like it. It's a good part of the MCU, a key part of the MCU. Captain Marvel, yeah. I have the first one. I don't have the Marvels, but I have Captain Marvel because I was a completionist and I was buying every MCU film. Famously, not a huge fan of this movie. Captain Phillips, not associated with Captain Marvel, but starring Tom Hanks. And the last scene in this movie is very, very good. I'm the captain now. Everybody was saying that at the time. Maybe they're all still saying it. Carrie, Brian De Palma, Sissy Spacek. One of the, I think, first, if not the first, Stephen King adaptations. This is one of those weird movies that comes with like a removable cardboard cover. This is when they want to trick you into buying a movie and thinking you don't have it. Like, no, it's a special edition. See, it's got a cheap 10-cent cardboard cover that we pasted to the front of the version you already have. They love to rip you off of physical media, but if it's cheap, I don't mind. It's just not cheap anymore. All right, on to our next batch. We have Casablanca. One of the greatest American movies ever made. A perfect movie, perfect screenplay, perfect performances. I don't care if you think it's old. It doesn't matter. It hasn't aged a bit. Casino, Martin Scorsese. A lot of people saw this as a knockoff Goodfellas. I actually quite enjoy it. I at one time I said that I thought it was as good as Goodfellas. I don't think that it is anymore, but I think it compares favorably to Goodfellas. Castaway, starring Tom Hanks, the shutdown production, and Robert Zemeckis made What Lies Beneath, and Tom Hanks lost a bunch of weight. Great performance. Very popular movie around Christmas, the year that it came out, which I think was in 2000. Another Tom Hanks movie, Catch Me If You Can, with Leonardo DiCaprio. One of Steven Spielberg's best movies. Really funny, a great crime, heist, caper movie. Just a fun movie. It's the kind of movie that did really well. Would it do that well right now? I don't know. More recent movie, Challengers. Great soundtrack, great performances. Another one from Luca Guadagnino. I think shut out completely at the Oscars. I think it deserves something. Charlie Wilson's War, another one with Tom Hanks, and one of my favorite Philip Seymour Hoffman performances. This was an Aaron Sorkin script, and it is a really, really entertaining movie and very kind of educational. It kind of explains how we got to where we were and how events can daisy chain down the line until you have unintended consequences. Chasing Amy from Kevin Smith. We got a few Kevin Smith movies coming up. I don't think this has aged as well, but at the time when it came out, I thought that this was one of the best written movies I'd ever seen. I think that it's very much a product of its time, but I think it's still a good movie. Cheap Thrills, which is a tiny little dirty horror movie. that we covered as part of Screen Junkies. And I like this movie because it just does not care. It does not let you off the hook, and it takes you on a journey. This movie is a ride from beginning to end. Chicago, musical, Best Picture winner. I know a lot of people thought that Richard Gere was a borderline war crime in this movie, but I hadn't seen Chicago on stage at the time, so I didn't know. Plus, everybody else was really good in it, and I like the music. I like the movie. I think it's very cinematic. Child's Play, another classic 80s horror film. This is another one with those cheap cardboard covers that just covers up a version of the movie that you already have, so they could say it's a special edition. Chucky, one of the great modern horror icons. I guess not modern anymore. I guess he's a classic horror icon. Chinatown. Everybody wants to talk Polanski, but I think you also have to look at Dunaway, Nicholson, Robert Towne, everybody else that was involved in this movie. Great, at that time, modern noir, now a classic noir, I guess. Christmas in July. This was a gift from Lon Harris. I have not had a chance to watch it yet, but if Lon gives you a movie, then odds are it's a pretty good movie. So, sorry, Lon, I haven't watched this yet, but I will soon, I promise. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. At some point every holiday season, I watch this movie at least once. It still makes me laugh. Randy Quaid hitting that thing and the thing's falling off of it in Clark's house is just such an act of wanton destruction. It makes me laugh every time.
It's a crying shame the older kids couldn't make it.
Chronicle, found footage horror movie. This is the director's cut, I think. Josh Trank kind of flamed out, but he made a good movie here in this one. Early Michael B. Jordan on film as well. Dane DeHaan. Citizen Kane. The Citizen Kane of movies, because it is Citizen Kane. This is the Criterion Collection. This is not the 4K. This is the Blu-ray. I meant to order the 4K, and I ordered the Blu-ray by mistake, but it still looks great. I actually watched this not too long ago because I hadn't watched it in a while. I know some people think it's just kind of a dry technical exercise, but I think it still holds up on a story level as well. And what Orson Welles achieved with that, his first movie, that's pretty crazy. City Slickers, I think is a great early 90s comedy with Billy Crystal, Daniel Stern, Bruno Kirby, who I believe is rest in peace, Jack Palance, rest in peace. Funny comedy. I haven't rewatched it in a while, but I remember liking it a lot. I said we got some Kevin Smiths coming up. Clerks. Very important movie to me as a teenager because it was sort of one of the births of the new indie movement at that time. And I had heard about it, and then I got a chance to watch it. A big Sundance breakout as we approach the Sundance Film Festival. Then we have Clerks 2, which is, of course, the sequel to Clerks, which I like. And then Clerks 3, which a lot of people did not like, but I liked because I like Kevin Smith. And I think that this is such a personal film, and it's got a lot of heart, and I'm kind of a sucker for Kevin Smith, so I'm a bigger fan of that movie than a lot of people are. Cliffhanger. Somebody on my Patreon asked what my favorite Rennie Harlan film was just a couple weeks ago, and I said it was probably Cliffhanger because Sylvester Stallone's great and a great movie villain performance from John Lithgow. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. As you know, I'm a Spielberg maniac, and I love this movie. I feel like this is the movie that's not always mentioned with all of his other masterpieces. People jump from Jaws to like E.T. and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and a lot of times they skip over Close Encounters, but I think it's just as good as most of those other movies, or close to as good. Cloverfield helped to invent viral marketing, kind of improved upon what Blair Witch Project did about a decade before this movie came out. And I think that the hype was maybe better than the movie, but it's still a somewhat enjoyable movie. Clue. Oh, talk about a comedy that makes me laugh every time. This movie is on my comedic frequency, that very dry, sometimes British, kind of sardonic, scathing tone that it has. This, if you want to know my type of humor, it's this type of humor, the humor that's in Clue. Dry, biting wordplay with the occasional just stupid physical gag, yes. Collateral, one of the worst covers for one of the best movies that I can think of. Michael Mann shooting on digital video in Los Angeles, early 21st century. Tom Cruise is the Jamie Foxx. Oh man, what a great movie! This makes it look like just a cheap, like direct-to-video thriller. That's why I hate when they do Blu-ray covers. Just put the poster on the cover. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. They already invented the perfect marketing image for every movie. That's why it was on the poster. Colossal was a little movie. I believe it was one of Neon's first movies, starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis. A very kind of out-of-character performance for Jason Sudeikis, but I liked him in the role, and I haven't revisited this, I think, since it was in theaters. Coming to America, when I said that I didn't know if Eddie Murphy was at the peak of his powers in Beverly Hills Cop, this might be where he was at the peak of his powers, because this is another one of the best comedies of the 1980s with Eddie in it. Commando, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Stupid, stupid movie. Really kind of one of the most two-type performances that we saw from Schwarzenegger in the 1980s. Some of the biggest groaners and one-liners. Speaking of, Con Air. Just... that cast must have all, I think they all had dinner before they started shooting and said, listen, this thing's ridiculous, so we're all just going to play our characters as crazy as possible and not care if it matches the tone of the movie, and it worked. Nicolas Cage, part of that legendary run from Nicolas Cage in the mid-90s. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. This was the first movie that George Clooney ever directed, and it tells the story of Chuck Barris, who was the host of The Gong Show and said that he was a big spy, and most of the stuff in this movie probably isn't true, but it's an entertaining movie, and the visual style in this movie is really good. The scene transitions and stuff like that. It's a great kind of sleeper pick if you haven't seen it. This is a 5-film Conjuring collection, which contains, let's see, what do we have here? We have The Nun, which is a movie that I did not enjoy. What else do we have here? Annabelle, and then The Conjuring 2, and then Annabelle, what's this, Annabelle Creation? Yeah, Annabelle Creation. So again, this is a collection that was on sale. This was probably like, $15 or something. And I'm a sales freak, so even if it's some movies that I haven't seen, or in the case of The Nun, a movie that I abjectly hate, it's hard for me to turn down like $15 for 5 movies. I'm like, what's a steal? This one, I think, maybe I'm wrong. I think when I did my very first video, I said that I was having trouble finding this movie, The Contender, on physical media. And I think one of the first things that somebody sent me when I did Patreon was to send me this movie on DVD, because I talked about how good it was and how I couldn't find it. And then they have since reissued it on Blu-ray. Joan Allen plays a nominee for vice president, I believe, and she's going through the Senate hearing process, and Gary Oldman plays this kind of corrupt senator. Jeff Bridges is the president. This is a really good movie. It was one of those movies that was like very highly acclaimed when it came out, but has kind of been lost in the shuffle. Cop Shop. COVID era release 2021, I want to say. Just a kind of ridiculous, dirty, grimy cop movie starring Jared Butler, who is, I like him in movies. I think he knows that what kind of movies he's in, and I think that he enjoys playing it. And then Toby Huss, I believe is his name. Yeah, Toby Huss has a great supporting performance in this movie. Just kind of a ridiculous film. Then we have 3 Creed movies. We've got the first Creed, which kind of brought that franchise back. That's a really good movie. Then we have Creed 2, which brought the whole Dolph Lundgren back into the mix, which I also enjoyed. And then we have Creed 3 with Jonathan Majors. I like this movie as well. You had Michael B. Jordan taking over the reins as a director. I like the 3 Creed films. I don't know if any of them really match the greatness of the first movie, but I think they're all 3 solid films, kind of like the Rocky franchise. Creepshow, great anthology horror movie. I love the style of this, the fact that it is those old 50s and 60s kind of neon horror comics brought to life. That's another one that I watch probably every 2 or 3 Halloweens. Crimson Tide from Tony Scott, starring Gene Hackman and Denzel Washington. If you were going to define what is a 90s thriller, Crimson Tide would almost be the picture that was next to it in the dictionary. Just a great example of the kind of like action cinema that was happening at the time. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was at that time the most notable and successful international film at the box office, definitely. But this was another movie when it came out, 2000. I was in high school. I saw it. I'm like, wow, you can do that? I didn't know you could do that in movies. The Crow, the original one. I actually have not seen this movie. I know this would shock people. I have not seen it. I think I bought this again for the Schmodown. One of the categories in the Schmodown was Inner Geekdom, which was all comic book movies, graphic novels. The Crow was one of them. And it's like, well, if I need to watch this movie, then I should probably just get it for cheap. And it was available for cheap. And I know that a lot of people have seen it. It's a big 90s movie. I haven't seen it. Cure. This movie was made by Kiyoshi Kurosawa. This is a Criterion Collection. I believe this was actually sent to me from someone that is part of my Patreon. And I also have not had a chance to watch this one yet, though I have heard many, many times over that this is a very good movie. And it is perpetually on my watch list, but I haven't watched it yet. Dante's Peak, Linda Hamilton, Pierce Brosnan, an exploding volcano. It was the mid-90s. What more could you want? It lived in the shadow of the more high-profile movie Volcano starring Tommy Lee Jones, but one of them is on my shelf, and it ain't Volcano. The Dark Knight, what more needs to be said about The Dark Knight? This is this was the first movie actually I ever owned on Blu-ray. Not just the first movie I ever owned on Blu-ray. This actual Blu-ray was the first Blu-ray I ever owned. And I was desperate because I bought it before I had my Blu-ray player. I was desperate to go home and watch the movie in high definition. The Dark Knight Rises, of course, the sequel. Not as successful, I think, as The Dark Knight, but certainly Bane and Tom Hardy have lived on. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I think probably the best of the new Apes movies, or the new Apes trilogy especially, although I like all three movies, but this is a very, very, very good film. Days of Heaven, the Criterion Edition, Terrence Malick. I'm not always on the same wavelength with his movies, but this is an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous film, and it's 94 minutes, so it's not like 3 hours like a lot of Terrence Malick's films, but it's also a very good story. Dazed and Confused, another one from Richard Linklater. I've got a lot of his movies. It's weird for a movie to define the early 90s that also defines the 70s, but this is such a kind of cultural moment showing what the 70s were like, but also part of that new indie movement of the 90s, that it kind of is in two eras. Then we have three Deadpool movies. We got the first Deadpool movie with Ryan Reynolds. Of course, we worked with him with Screen Junkies in conjunction with this, and also in conjunction with Deadpool 2. This is the super duper cut with all the extra weird, alternate stuff. And then Deadpool and Wolverine. I quite enjoyed this movie. I wasn't so sure about a new Deadpool movie, but bringing Wolverine in, I was worried that it was kind of a marketing ploy or a gimmick. It was not. It was actually a meaningful story for both Deadpool and Wolverine, and I thought it was a good idea. Oh, John Schnepp, the late, great John Schnepp. The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? I liked John a lot, and we were friendly. We, of course, were in the same circles, and we talked several times. I wish I had known John better, because those who really, really knew him had so many amazing stories to tell about him, and he certainly provided so many amazing stories in the interactions I had with him. This is a documentary he made. I think this is the definitive documentary about Superman Lives, Tim Burton's Superman film, and its long death at Warner Brothers. John Schnepp had gone way too soon, but he left behind a big legacy, including that film. Deep Blue Sea, another Rennie Harlin film. Absolutely ridiculous movie, but I will watch it anytime because it's got sharks and Samuel L. Jackson, getting eaten by sharks. Demolition Man, 90s action, Snipes, Stallone. What more could you want? I think we're getting closer and closer. When did Demolition Man take place? 2032. So we're what, 7 years away from Demolition Man? Taco Bell better get busy. They're not acquiring things fast enough. Oh, shit. All right, now we get into something that I really wasn't into until about 2020, 2021. I have my friend Ben to thank for getting me into this show, and I quite love it. Demon Slayer. So this is the first season of Demon Slayer. Or I think this is the first part of the first season of Demon Slayer? Yeah, this is the first part of the first season of Demon Slayer. And this is the second part of the first season of Demon Slayer. The top anime of 2019, it says. This is the, what is this one? The Entertainment District arc, which is the next season of Demon Slayer. They put them all on one disc for that one because it was a shorter season. This is the Swordsmith Village arc of Demon Slayer. I think it's the last season. Yeah, this is the last season that I own of the show. These anime DVDs are very expensive, so I kind of collect them piecemeal. And this is Demon Slayer, the movie, Mugen Train. I know that I've got the movie out of sequence with the show. I should probably put it in the right sequence, but of course we've had Infinity Castle since then, and then we've got more Demon Slayer movies coming. So I'll eventually have all of Demon Slayer, but that's what I have right now. Den of Thieves, a movie that really surprised me. I didn't expect anything from it, and I actually quite liked it. I didn't see the second one. I heard it was not as good as the first one. The Departed, which I think is legally how you have to say it. Not the best movie Martin Scorsese has ever made, but definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite of his. This is a movie that I could put on anytime. You could start it at any random point in the movie, and I would sit and watch it all the way to the end. The Devil Wears Prada, which is getting a sequel next year. 2026, The Devil Wears Prada 2. Yeah, I own it. I don't care. I think, you know what it says about me? It says that I enjoy good movies and good acting. That's what me owning The Devil Wears Prada says about me, because I think it's a very good comedy. Devil's Advocate, one of the great unhinged Al Pacino performances of all time. And you know what? I think Keanu works in this movie. He didn't necessarily always work in his castings, especially in the 90s, but I think he works in that movie. Dick Tracy. This was a big movie for me when I was a kid. I dressed up as Dick Tracy for Halloween, one of the great ensemble casts of all time, famously a box office bomb, but I don't care because I have so much sentimental attachment to it, and I think this movie has a lot of great style. I think it looks great, and it is very pulpy and kind of those 1940s comics brought to life. This is the Die Hard 25th anniversary Blu-ray collection, which I think puts it at like 2015. This has the first 4 Die Hard movies. Yeah, Die Hard 1, 2, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and Live Free or Die Hard. I'd have no need to own the other Die Hard movie. I often would argue that they should stop making Die Hard movies, but quite frankly, I would take 6 or 7 or 8 more Die Hard movies if it meant that Bruce Willis could still be making movies, which he can't, and that's just the worst. The Disaster Artist, the dramatization of the making of The Room, which you will see later on. I love this. I read the book subsequent to seeing the movie, and I love this movie, and I think that everybody plays their characters very well. And the story of Making the Room is just as interesting, maybe more so than the movie itself. Django Unchained from Quentin Tarantino, part of his sort of revisionist history run of films. Do the Right Thing, one of the most important movies ever made, one of the most culturally significant movies ever made, directed by Spike Lee. I've got the Criterion edition. I think I rewatched it maybe 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure, but I would like to watch it again because it is one of those like moments where it's like you may not know it at the time, but it sort of is a radical moment in cinema. Dr. Sleep, the sequel to The Shining. I was very wary of this film, and Mike Flanagan did a great job with this. I believe this is the this includes the director's cut, which I think is actually, it expands on the theatrical cut in some very meaningful ways. So that's the version of the movie that I watch. I really like Dr. Sleep. I'm a big fan of Mike Flanagan. Doctor Strange, MCU, completionist, etc., etc. Benedict Cumberbatch. This is the only Doctor Strange movie that I own. Dodgeball. Didn't know what to expect from this movie either, and really, really liked it. I remember seeing it in theaters and just laughing my butt off. And I also laugh my butt off when I still see it. Al Pacino, Dog Day Afternoon. Sidney Lumet once again. Al Pacino once again. Lumet and Pacino in the 70s, separately and together, one of the best runs for actors and for an actor and a director ever in the history of movies. Don't Think Twice is a little movie directed by Mike Birbiglia about improv comedians that I saw in theaters 2016, 2017 when it came out, and really, really liked. And I've only watched it maybe once, maybe not at all since, but I enjoyed that. A great ensemble cast. Dope, which I think is just a really great throwback 90s movie. I saw it for the first time on a plane, and they had cut out a lot of the best parts. And when I watched it again, I was like, oh, that joke's even funnier when they don't cut the best parts out for a plane. I don't usually like to watch movies on a plane that I haven't seen before, but that was one that I did, and it was even better when I saw the actual cut of the movie and not the edited version. Double Indemnity, Billy Wilder, one of the definitive film noir films. Fred McMurray, Barbara Stanwyck, maybe the definitive film noir couple. Oh, I love this movie. I love the script for it. I love the dialogue. I love the performances. Edward G. Robinson, one of those movies I could sit down and watch anytime. One of the best movies ever made. Speaking of, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. Probably one of my top 1 or 2 favorite Kubrick films, and one of the best comedies, dark comedies, black comedies, absolutely, but one of the best comedies ever made, and made in the moment, not retroactive to the 60s and the nuclear threat, made while all of that was happening, which is even crazier. Dragnet. This is another one that maybe not a lot of people have seen, but I watched all the time when I was a kid. Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks in a movie adaptation of the 60s cop show. Christopher Plummer plays the kind of the bad guy in this. This is from Shout, which does the kind of specialty releases. I doubt many other people care about Dragnet the way that I do, but I I like that movie because it's so attached to my childhood. Dread. Who directed this movie? Was it Alex Garland? Was it not Alex Garland? That is something that is still debated to this day. What's not debated, though, is that it's a pretty kick-ass action movie, and Carl Urban really helps to... I mean, he'd already been on the scene, but it helped him to. This is also a 3D Blu-ray. If anybody still had a 3D television, we could actually watch Dread in 3D. Drive My Car, a movie that I wouldn't think that I would have liked. It sounds very ponderous. It's like 3 hours long, and it's kind of like about, humanity and so many kind of heavier themes. And it doesn't sound interesting on its face, but it's actually one of the best movies of the 21st century. And so I had to pick it up on Criterion Collection because I think it's a really good movie. It's a kind of a vibe movie. It's slow, but it doesn't feel slow, at least not to me. Duel. I picked this up, I think, a couple years ago because I had not seen it in a very long time, or maybe I hadn't seen the whole thing all the way through. What a great example of the future of a filmmaker. It's that Steven Spielberg's, technically his first movie, but it was a TV movie here in the United States, so it wasn't his first U.S. theatrical release, although it was released in theaters in Europe. But great promise and a lot of Jaws DNA. Dumbo. Disney classic, even with the problematic birds included. Watched this a lot when I was a kid, and at one point I just started buying a lot of Disney movies because it's good to have them, and I didn't know if I would have kids that I might want to show them to. Again, this is before Disney Plus, when like all the movies were at your fingertips. It used to be, back in my day, if you wanted to see a Disney movie, you had to buy it on DVD or Blu-ray because otherwise it would go in the vault. And once it went in the vault, you never knew when it was going to come out of the vault, and then the vault became Disney Plus, and it's open all the time. Dune, David Lynch's version. Not my bag, necessarily, but an interesting movie, and I understand why this is some people's favorite version of Dune. Not my favorite version of Dune. My favorite version of Dune is the first movie, Dune Part 1, Denis Villeneuve, which I loved, and I had never seen Dune, and I didn't know anything about Dune at all. And then Dune Part 2, which I thought was fantastic. And I am anxiously awaiting the third Dune film. I love Denis Villeneuve's Dune movies, and the fact that he wasn't Oscar nominated for either of them is criminal. Bring him up on charges. Dungeons & Dragons, Honor Among Thieves. This is a fun movie. I really like this movie. I had a blast watching it, and I wish more people had seen it because that's the kind of movie that I think people should go see. When people say, why don't they put good movies out in theaters anymore? How many of you went to see this? Because this was good. People didn't go see it. So there you go. Ooh, the discs are rolling around in this one. That's not good. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. My favorite musical score of all time, one of my favorite Steven Spielberg movies of all time. It has a moment when they take off and go across the sun. I get literal goosebumps. I get chills every time I see it. Every single time I see it. Maybe my favorite single cinematic moment of all time. Ed Wood, Tim Burton, his profile of the famous bad movie director starring Johnny Depp and Martin Landau, who won an Academy Award for his performance in the movie. This is a great movie about art and passion and sticking to your guns, even if nobody else believes in what you do. Edge of Tomorrow. That's what the name of the movie is. I bought a ticket to see this movie, and I said 1 ticket to Edge of Tomorrow, not 1 ticket to Live, Die, Repeat. So it's getting filed under Edge of Tomorrow, another film unappreciated or underappreciated in its time that people now recognize as a very, very good movie. A lot of people said that when it came out, but now you would think that it was a big box office hit because people still talk about it. And then Edward Scissorhands from Tim Burton, maybe the most Tim Burton film that Tim Burton ever brought into this world, and definitive for him as a director, or has to be in the conversation as one of his most definitive movies. All right, on to the next batch. Criterion Collection, Election. Tracy Flick, played by Reese Witherspoon. Great character from her, kind of transitioning into being an adult actress. Great kind of comeback performance from Matthew Broderick. Elvis, starring Austin Butler. That run between Austin Butler and Brendan Fraser for Best Actor, I would have been equally happy with either of them. This movie can get kind of weird, but Austin Butler's great in it. Tom Hanks is in it. Empire Records, one of the cornerstone films for any 90s kid, one of the best movie soundtracks for any 90s kid, one of the best Liv Tyler performances for any 90s kid, or at least for me. I was in love with Liv Tyler at that time, and Empire Records was a big reason why. Encanto from Disney. I like this movie. It had a weird, timing theatrically. It didn't have a huge box office, but I've read that this is the most watched movie on Disney Plus. So I don't know why they have not greenlit a sequel. Ooh, these are two dumb movies that I love. Ernest Goes to Camp and Ernest Goes to Jail. Jim Varney, one of the most popular characters of the 80s that I don't know if he's had a resurgence or if he's been completely forgotten, but I love Ernest and I love both of those movies. They're so stupid. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, one of my favorite movies of all time. One of the more, realistic movies maybe about love. And Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet both put in two of the best performances of their career. Everything Everywhere All at Once. How crazy is it that this movie didn't just win Best Picture, but swept its way to Best Picture? One of the more unique visions of cinema in the last 5 to 10 years or so. Evil Dead 2. A great combination of comedy and horror from Sam Raimi. This is another semi-annual Halloween watch and just a crazy bonkers movie in all the best ways. Evil Dead Rise, which I really, really enjoyed. I think they're making a sequel or another Evil Dead theatrical film. I didn't really know to expect anything from this movie, but I thought it had the spirit. It had that DNA of the original Evil Dead movies. Ex Machina, from an early Alex Garland film, and one that I think has only gotten better with age because we are now even closer to, the AI singularity or whatever you want to call it. I think this could perhaps be seen as a cautionary tale if it wasn't already in the next several years. The Exorcist. This includes the different versions, a couple different versions of the movie. I think the theatrical version is the best. William Friedkin, who we lost not too long ago, just grabbed audiences by the you-know-what and did not let go. The Expendables 1, 2, and 3. Why do I have all three of these movies? I don't know. Did this probably cost $10 or yes or less? Almost certainly, which would explain why I have it. Oh, look at that. A 2025 release. F1 the movie. Now, I have to admit this was sent as part of the awards season, but I was happy to receive it because I think it's a great viewing experience. And I think, put it on the TV, crank the sound up. I'm going to have fun watching that someday. Face Off, part of, again, that legendary Nicolas Cage run. And John Travolta just doing a whole lot of great John Travolta stuff. This is over the top in all the best ways, and I've probably seen that movie more than is healthy. Fahrenheit 9/11, this was another one that I believe was an upgrade from DVD, another Michael Moore documentary. Again, more of service or of use as an historical era marker than an actual factual documentary. But at the time, boy, we all thought it was. Fargo, the Coen Brothers movie, maybe my favorite Coen Brothers movie. Definitely the most fun to watch. I love everybody in this movie and their accents, and William H. Macy playing one of the great weasels, and Frances McDormand playing just a decent person who can't understand why everybody can't just get along. And then I've got a couple of seasons of the Fargo TV show. Again, pre-streaming when you didn't know how else you could watch these. So there's Fargo Season 1. And Fargo Season 2. And I think I watched the third season, but didn't watch the rest of the show. I heard it was good. Sure. Fast and Furious, 9-movie collection. I think there's maybe 2.5 good movies out of these 9, but I can't pass up a good deal. And when I see 9 Fast and Furious movies on sale for, let's say, $21, yeah, sure. Why not? It's worth it to have it on the shelf. I do have some movies on the shelf that probably have no reason to be there, but I don't know. It's just how I am. The Favorite from Yorgos Lanthimos gave us one of the best Oscar moments with Olivia Colman's win, richly deserved win, and a great ensemble piece. I like Yorgos Lanthimos' style. I like his vibe. I've liked most of his movies. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, one of the key movies of the 1980s, a movie that I've seen probably 100 times, half of them on television, and one of my favorite John Hughes films, and still one that I revisit from time to time. Oh, man. Rest in peace, Rob Reiner. A Few Good Men. This is one of my favorite movies that he ever did. Aaron Sorkin wrote the play and then wrote the screenplay for the film. And this is another movie, if it's on. I don't flip through the channels anymore because I don't have cable. Back when I did have cable, if I was slipping through and A Few Good Men was on, that's the channel I was going to land on. Field of Dreams, starring Kevin Costner, one of the great baseball movies of all time, one of the great father-son movies of all time, and a really, really enjoyable film overall. And from an era where a movie like this would get a Best Picture nomination. The Fifth Element, this is one of the Steelbook. I don't do a whole lot of the Steelbooks, but again, if it's at a good price, I'll get it. And it's a good movie to have in high definition. I kind of came to that one late. I don't love it as much as a lot of people do, but I still like it. Fight Club on Blu-ray. I'm sure that there's a 4K version of this, but I just haven't upgraded yet. Again, part of that class of 1999 that blew my mind that you could do that in movies. You could have this visual language. You could tell this kind of story. Let's see, what is this? This is the 10th anniversary edition. I've had this DVD since 2009, or this Blu-ray. That's nutty. I've had whatever. Final Destination. I love this franchise. These movies are so fun to watch. So this is the first 4 Final Destination films all together in one package. Again, I can't turn down a deal, especially if it's a bunch of movies that I already like. And then I did get, I think this is part of my Black Friday shopping. I got Final Destination Bloodlines, which I think fits right into the rest of the canon and is a very entertaining film. First Blood, the first Rambo movie. The other Rambo movies are about as different from this movie as you can get inside of one franchise. This is more of a hard-hitting drama, and Sylvester Stallone's very good in it, and then it would just go off into action movie craziness. Then we have First Man from Damien Chazelle, another moon landing movie that I don't know if it's talked about that much, but especially the visual style of it, and I think that Ryan Gosling's performance is very good in the movie. I don't know how factual it is. Yeah, I bought The Flash. I liked this movie partially because I love Michael Keaton as Batman, and this movie had that in it. And I didn't think it was atrocious like some people did, and it was probably cheap. Those combinations, it's hard for me to turn that down. Anything Michael Keaton Batman related, it's hard for me to say no to. Fletch, starring Chevy Chase. This is the Kino Lorber version, and this is one of my favorite comedies of the 1980s. Again, this, Christmas Vacation, a few other movies show why Chevy Chase was such a great comedic actor of his time or any other time. David Cronenberg's version of The Fly, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis, one of the grossest movies ever made, but also one of my favorite, especially the effects, the creature effects, the makeup, so good. Ford v. Ferrari. I like this movie a lot, and I said I bought some of the Disney films speculatively, maybe if I would have had kids one day, but also I think I bought this one in case I became a father someday, so that I would just already have this to watch on Father's Day, because this is a very dad movie. Forrest Gump, Tom Hanks. One of the like, if you were going to put a Mount Rushmore of 90s movies, I think Forrest Gump would have to be one of them. The cultural significance of this movie in the 1990s was almost unmatched. It'd be like Forrest Gump, Titanic, and a couple others. The French Connection, another one from William Friedkin, a Best Picture winner. Gene Hackman. Man, we lost him not too long ago. One of his great performances and a great gritty 70s cop drama. The French Dispatch from Wes Anderson. I know they put out that big Criterion super box set, which looks really cool, but I already own so many of the movies that I would rather spend money on movies that I don't own, or at least fewer movies that I already own. So I didn't love The French Dispatch, but I liked it enough to buy it probably cheap. Friday Night Lights. This is the movie based on the book that the TV show would later be based on. And it's a great sports movie. One of the great sports movies. So now we get into the Friday the 13th section, because I got the big, let's see, who put this out? The big Scream box set. Scream is one of the horror distributors or horror labels. And so I got the whole Friday the 13th collection. So we have Friday the 13th, the first one, which I think is notable for being kind of, a breakout hit. Friday the 13th Part 2, which is not a great movie, but it kind of brings Jason into the fold specifically. Friday the 13th Part 3, 3D, which is an absolutely ridiculous movie, and we get the hockey mask Jason and all that stuff, so it's seminal in its own way. Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Spoiler alert, this movie was not the final chapter, but it was a Friday the 13th movie, so that part of the title was accurate. Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, where they tried to do the franchise without Jason and realized very quickly that that wasn't going to work. So then we got Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives. This is my personal favorite movie in the franchise. I think I watched it this year. right around Halloween. I just think it has everything that you're looking for in a Friday the 13th film. So of the franchise, of the series, this is my number one. Then we have Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, which was, I don't even really remember that much about it. It must not have been very good. Friday the 13th, Jason, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, which has like 2 good minutes out of about 90 minutes. Not a great movie. Then we have Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, which was once again not The Final Friday, but did indeed feature Jason going to hell and setting up Freddy versus Jason. Jason X, which a lot of people absolutely love. I don't love it so much. It is cheesy and corny, and I get why people love it, but it's not, one of my favorites. Then we have Freddy versus Jason, which I do like because it is cheesy and corny and not very good, but in that kind of way that I enjoy. And, of course, the 2009 Friday the 13th reboot, which did not have a sequel, even though it was supposed to kind of restart the series. And then I have a separate Friday the 13th 2009 version, and this one is signed by Derek Mears, who plays Jason Voorhees, who I was lucky enough to get to know when I was in Los Angeles during my Channel 101 days, and who is legitimately one of the nicest people that you'll ever meet. He just happens to play horrifying monsters on screen. The Fugitive in 4K. Oh, this is a great movie. I love this movie. It's not even like one of those good for a 90s thriller movies. It's just a good movie. Great performances. Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones matching up against each other. The Fugitive, another one of those movies I could watch it anytime. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I love Mad Max Fury Road. I was way less high on this movie, but I think it was probably on sale. And regardless of whether I like the plot, the story, etc., all that much, it's worth it to have in high definition just to put it on TV. Galaxy Quest, one of the best Star Trek movies. It's not a Star Trek movie. We made a whole documentary about it while I was at Screen Junkies, and that was a lot of fun to do. And this movie is a lot of fun to watch. The Game, from David Fincher, starring Michael Douglas. One of the kind of lesser spoken about David Fincher movies, and maybe not as, the highs may not be as high as some other David Fincher films, but I think it's just still good, a really good movie. Game Night, one of the best 21st century comedies. Jesse Plemons is so good in this movie, and it's just a really fun time. It's a good time. I was glad that it did decent at the box office. All right, now we get into a big TV block because we got Game of Thrones. So we've got Game of Thrones Season 1, yay! Game of Thrones Season 2, yay! Game of Thrones Season 3, yay! Game of Thrones Season 4, yay! Game of Thrones Season 5, yay! Game of Thrones Season 6, yay! And Game of Thrones Season 7. What a progression on that show. Next up, we've got Garden State. I bought this because I had it on DVD. It was a very meaningful movie to me when it came out in 2004 or 2003 or whenever it came out. It's charming that movie meant so much to me. It's not terrible, but it's charming. Geostorm. Oof. Bad movie, but the kind of bad movie I like to have on the shelf for one of those days when you've just had the right kind of day where you're like, what kind of movie do I want to watch? And Geostorm is sitting there waiting for you to pull it off the shelf. It could be sitting there for 5 years, but that perfect night will come when Geostorm needs to come off the shelf, and that's what it's there for. Break glass in case of emergency. Get Out. I mentioned that a little bit when I was talking about Candyman, Jordan Peele. Great movie. Didn't appreciate it as much the first time I saw it. Have appreciated it more every time since that I've seen it. I think it's a brilliantly put together film. Well acted, well directed. Crazy that Jordan Peele did that his first time out as a filmmaker on a feature. Ghostbusters, the original 1984 movie. One of the, again, cornerstone movies of my childhood. I've seen this movie so many times, and I think it's still great. Works equally well as a horror movie and as a comedy. Ghostbusters 2, still a fun sequel. Committed the sin of not measuring up to the original, which would be hard to do anyway. But you still see people and hear people talk about it. I have the 2016 Ghostbusters. I don't for the life of me remember. Now, I didn't hate it. I was not part of that this movie is the worst thing ever crowd, but I don't know what possessed me to actually purchase it. It must have been on sale because I wouldn't pay full price for it. I didn't like it that much, but I do own it. And then Ghostbusters Afterlife, which I did enjoy. I quite liked this movie. I don't have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire because I didn't like it. I think even if it was on sale for like $5, I wouldn't buy it because I didn't like it. It's not a good movie. The Gift. This is a movie from Joel Edgerton. It's not the movie that I think Sam Raimi did starring Katie Holmes and Cate Blanchett. This is the movie starring Joel Edgerton, or directed by Joel Edgerton and starring Jason Bateman. And it's a really creepy movie. And if you haven't heard of it, you should see it because it's been quite some time. And make sure you did. Yeah. Writer-director Joel Edgerton. He did both and is also in the movie. Glass. The ending of the Unbreakable saga. I didn't hate this movie. A lot of people do. I didn't hate it. It's not a crowning triumph, but I didn't hate it. It was cool to see all of the characters interacting, but, wasn't the best movie ever. And then Glengarry Glen Ross. This is this is from Shout? Yeah, this is from Shout Factory. This is a somewhat recent release. I love Glengarry Glen Ross. It's one of my favorite movies. And it's another one where I could watch any individual scene from the movie, or I could watch the whole movie. It doesn't really matter to me. Jack Lemmon, one of the best performances that any actor has ever put in a motion picture, is in this movie, and it was not recognized by the Academy. And once again, that's criminal. And then finally, we have, the big one, the Godfather trilogy. All three. Yes. Really, you only need the first two, but you got all three in this box. I'm not a Godfather 3 hater. It just doesn't measure up to the other two, but even the first two movies, masterpieces. They're masterpieces of cinema. They are. Still. Case closed. All right, I'm going to be honest with you. I've been doing this for over 2 hours, and we're just now in the G's. I really didn't think it would take me this long to get through all of these, so I actually need to take a little break here and dump some of this footage and make sure everything looks okay. And you may see a lighting change. There may even be a wardrobe change, either at the next one or the one after, because I'm definitely going to have to split this up into 2 filming sessions. This will undoubtedly be the longest video ever on this channel. But hey, it's by request. A lot of folks wanted to see it, and I don't want to just go like Glengarry Glen Ross, Godfather, Glass. No, let's talk about these movies. If we're going to show them off, let's talk about them. So we're going to go to the next batch of movies. I might be wearing this outfit. I might not be. The light might change. The light might not, or it might happen down in the future. But we're still going. We're going to go all the way A to Z, all the Blu-rays and the 4Ks and even a few DVDs. So here we go. We're back to the G's, and this is a pretty big Godzilla section here. I bought most of these for that Godzilla ranked video that I did, I think, last year. So we have the original Godzilla, the Criterion Collection version, which is just good to have anyway. And then a bunch of Godzilla movies that I bought. I don't know if they're official releases, but I was able to buy them. So this is Godzilla 1984, which is the kind of rebooted Godzilla. I think it's under a couple of different names. This is Godzilla versus Biollante, which as I recall, was up there as one of my favorite Godzilla films. And a lot of these, I think some of these have been put out in Criterion since then. This is Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. This is Godzilla versus Mothra, the new version. A lot of these are sort of from the 80s version. This is a double one, Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, and Godzilla versus Space Godzilla. Gotta have those double packs. This is Godzilla versus Destoroyah and Godzilla versus Megaguirus. This is Godzilla 2000. Includes both versions of the film. This is Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Monsters All-Out Attack, and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. So we've got that. A lot of Godzilla movies here. This is Godzilla Tokyo SOS and Godzilla Final Wars. Then we have the 2014 version of Godzilla. This is another one of those 3D Blu-rays. We have Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which I thought was a disappointing sequel to the 2014 version. Godzilla vs. Kong, one of the first movies to come out post-COVID, one of the delayed movies due to COVID. Godzilla, Kong, The New Empire, the most recent one in the new MonsterVerse. And then, one of my favorites, Godzilla -1. Fantastic movie. I can't wait for the sequel that I think is coming out in 2026. And there's even more Godzillas that we're going to talk about because when I get to the box sets, I've got a big Criterion one too that's got most of the early Godzilla movies. So a lot of Godzilla films in my collection that I bought specifically for that video, but I'm glad I have them because I like a lot of those movies. All right, moving on from Godzilla, we've got Gone Girl. another film from David Fincher that was very good. Gone with the Wind, 1939, one of the classics of cinema, even though, yes, problematic as all hell, but still one of the best examples of filmmaking in that legendary year of 1939. Good Morning Vietnam, starring Robin Williams, one of the other movies that's in my collection that I have not yet watched. And I know that there's people probably a little older than me, they're like, what? You haven't watched that yet? What's wrong with you? Good Time, the Safdie brothers, one of their early movies. I remember seeing this movie in theaters and thinking, wow, that's got a different vibe to it, and I felt that about most of the other Safdie films as well. Good Will Hunting, great movie, still love it. Matt and Ben, one of the their big Hollywood debut, their big Hollywood breakout, and a great performance from Robin Williams. Goodfellas, Martin Scorsese. I mean, some people say this is the movie to beat for him. It is a fantastic movie. Gosford Park from Robert Altman. I watched this one, I think this year or last year for the first time in a while and really liked it. This is sort of a proto Downton Abbey, if Downton Abbey also had a murder mystery element, and Maggie Smith basically plays the same character and is just as delightful. The Graduate, Criterion Collection. I love The Graduate. What a great kind of counterculture movie. Again, if you talk about a movie capturing the moment, especially for younger folks, and the fact that that was part of that revolution in the 1960s in cinema. And then The Grand Budapest Hotel, which is a great Wes Anderson movie. It's up there. It's in my top 2 Wes Anderson movies. It's up there with Royal Tenenbaums. Great movie, and Ralph Fiennes should have been nominated for an Oscar for that movie. Full stop. All right, we have another 3D Blu-ray here, Gravity, which it was a fantastic movie to see in 3D. I think I saw that at the TCL Chinese Theater in LA. Great screen, great 3D effects. I wish they made more movies like Gravity that were 3D intentionally. You'd only get maybe 1 or 2 a year. The Great Escape, Criterion Collection. I think I was doing this movie for Dan's Movie Club, and I was like, well, you know what? Let's just get the Criterion Collection anyway, because it's a great movie, so why not have it? The Great Gatsby. Why do I own this movie? It's not that I don't like it, but I never really felt a huge compulsion to buy it. This must have been in like a $5 sale. This smacks of $5 movie for me. The Green Knight, David Lowery, A24, stunning visual movie. It didn't do well at the box office, and it's not one that I really see brought up a lot. If you haven't seen The Green Knight, especially again for the visual style, I think that is a fantastic watch. The Green Mile, Frank Darabont, Stephen King, one of the best Stephen King adaptations, one of those 3-hour movies that just flies by, doesn't feel like 3 hours. Percy, one of the worst characters in movie history. Green Room, starring the late Anton Yelchin, and a great villain performance from Patrick Stewart. I rewatched this one for my A24 horror movie video and enjoyed it as much on that rewatch as I did the first time that I saw it. 2-film collection containing both Gremlins, which is a great horror comedy, and Gremlins 2, The New Batch, which is a great horror comedy meta sequel. You really can't go wrong with either one of those Gremlins films. They just have a sense of fun about them. The Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez double feature Grindhouse. So this is both of their features packaged together as they were released in theaters. It was an interesting experiment. Didn't really work out box office-wise, and I'm not a huge fan of Death Proof. But I think that Planet Terror really nailed that tone, right? Nailed what they were going for, and we got Thanksgiving. There were a lot of the fake trailers in front of this movie we actually got as real movies. Thanksgiving, Machete, I think a couple of other. I think the only one that we haven't gotten is was it Werewolf Zombies of the SS and Don't, which Edgar Wright directed. I feel like I've already shown this one, but I guess I haven't. Groundhog Day. One of the great modern comedies. I was listening to, I forget what it was, I think it was the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast. They were talking about this movie maybe, and saying that this is one of the few movies that like invented a new genre. That, you know, when you don't hear Groundhog Day compared to any other movie, but you have so many other movies that are like, it's Groundhog Day, but in blank. You don't get too many movies that like reinvent things that well. Guardians of the Galaxy, the original one from 2014, another 3D Blu-ray. I really like that movie, one of my favorite MCU films. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I thought was a pretty good sequel, but not as good as the first. I don't own Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. That is a discount movie. If that movie ever went on discount, I probably would buy it, but it hasn't really. Halloween I have on 4K because I love this movie. I think that this is the original one. I think that it is one of the best horror movies ever made. I think it is a landmark movie for movies in general, and that's a yearly watch for me. Then we have a Halloween triple feature. This is what? Halloween H2O, Halloween The Curse of Michael Myers, and Halloween Resurrection. I would say one-ish good film. Listen, the Halloween sequels aren't the best. I think I bought this because I was going to do a Halloween ranked video and I never did. That's why I also have this one, which is a combo pack of Rob Zombie's Halloween and Halloween 2. I'm not a particular fan of either one of those movies. This was another one of the first Blu-rays I owned. I think it was The Dark Knight, and then The Hangover was maybe the second Blu-ray that I owned. I remember I didn't get a chance to see it in theaters because I went to see it twice, and it was sold out both times. That's how popular this movie was. Maybe it hasn't aged as well as some comedies, but I still think it's got some funny parts. Oh, what? No. The Happening. One of the best, most bizarre movies ever made, featuring one of the best, most bizarre performances from Mark Wahlberg, and also, by the way, from Zooey Deschanel. I don't care if it's intentionally funny or unintentionally funny. It's just funny. Happy Death Day. I like this movie a lot. And I don't, again, I'm not as in touch with like what has transcended or what's kind of broken through the conversation. I don't know if people still talk about Happy Death Day, but I like the first movie, and I like the sequel, Happy Death Day to You, which kind of did a genre change, and I think that left a lot of people off balance, and they didn't know what to think about that movie, but I think it's actually really good. There's some unexpectedly strong character work and some great performances in those movies. And then Happy Gilmore. We had Happy Gilmore 2 earlier this year. Happy Gilmore has always been and is still my favorite Adam Sandler comedy. It's just, again, it's very much on my wavelength. I like comedy of the absurd, and this is one of them. Another one from the Criterion Collection, and a really good 60s comedy starring the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night, which was directed by Richard Lester, who would then go on to kind of bring that comedy sensibility to Superman 2, which maybe was not the right choice for that particular movie, but this movie is very funny, and I think tonally it fits. Harry and the Hendersons, one of those 80s movies that could only exist in the 80s. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's about a Bigfoot that comes and lives with the family. John Lithgow plays the dad, and I think it also inspired a spin-off series. I don't know if that movie could have been made anytime else other than the 80s. 4K collection of the Harry Potter series. I enjoy the Harry Potter films, and I used to have them individually on Blu-ray, but I upgraded them all, and they're now all in one 8-film collection. I do not own the Fantastic Beasts films. You did not see them in the Fs, and there's a reason for that. The Hateful Eight by Quentin Tarantino. Kind of a divisive movie. A lot of people did not enjoy it. I very much did enjoy it. It doesn't feel too long. A movie can be long and talky if it's interesting, and I think this is an interesting sort of bottle movie. You're basically in one room for the entire movie, but I like it. I find it interesting. Heat, directed by Michael Mann. I'm sure there are better versions out there, but if you can find a better crime movie made in the last, 40-ish years, there's not going to be too many that are going to be above Heat. Hell or High Water. Before Taylor Sheridan was doing exclusively Paramount Plus original series, he wrote Hell or High Water, which is a very, very good modern Western. Starring Jeff Bridges and Chris Pine and Ben Foster. And if you haven't seen it, I think it is maybe one of the best new Westerns made this century. This is a sweet little movie from Michael Showalter. It's called Hello, My Name is Doris, starring Sally Field as an older woman who falls in love with a younger coworker. And a very tiny little movie. If you didn't catch it when it came out, you probably haven't heard about it since, but I liked it. And I think that Michael Showalter is actually an underrated director. He's done a lot of really good movies. Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Spike Jonze. Spencer Gilbert and I used to have a great argument about this movie because he thought it was about a creep, and I thought it was about a very sad, lonely man who was reaching out to any type of connection. And talk about a movie that is more relevant now than it was when it came out about 10 years ago. The whole idea of talking to AI and forming a relationship, like you see stories in the news about stuff like that. So this has become, reality. Oh, here we go. My beloved Hereditary. Hashtag an Oscar for Tony. I've seen this movie probably, if you're looking at like a length of time since it's been out versus how many times I've seen it disproportionately more than a lot of other films, because I've watched it at home several times. I went and saw it in IMAX when they did the re-release. I love Hereditary. Mel Brooks film called High Anxiety, which is a parody of Alfred Hitchcock movies. Not one of his most cited movies, but I think still a very funny one, very much, in the parody line. This is a Kino Lorber release of High Noon starring Gary Cooper, which I think is a great real-time Western. Again, at one time I think it was one of the most famous movies ever made. I don't know if it still is, but it's very, very, very good if you haven't seen High Noon. The Hobbit trilogy on 4K, again, I don't particularly enjoy these movies, and I don't know why I own them. There was a deal at some point where I felt that the price was right for me to acquire these films. Every collector has titles on their shelf. When they go and look at the shelf, they go, wait a minute, why do I own that? The Hobbit movies would be one of those. This was a great one from a couple years ago, The Holdovers, starring Paul Giamatti. That was another Best Actor race where, I don't begrudge the winner, but I would have loved for Giamatti to win. It was just a brutal, brutal year in the Best Actor category. He deserved it as much as anybody, and I think it's a great one. It's a great Christmas watch. I may try to watch this before the season's done. Speaking of Christmas watch, Home Alone. I love that this movie has now become like the Christmas classic, because it was always popular, but it seems like the last 5-10 years, especially with the advent of streaming, Home Alone has become even more popular. And I love that because I've seen that movie a ridiculous amount of times, and it was a big movie for me as a kid. And of course, I also have Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, which is mostly just a repeat of Home Alone, but it was a winning formula, and they said, hey, let's do that again. And, generally, I think it kind of works. Hook. I loved this movie when I was a kid, less so as an adult. I don't hate it, but it's got some flaws. It's a little bit too long, but you can't argue with Robin Williams as Peter Pan and Dustin Hoffman as Captain Hook. One of the great movie villain performances of the 90s is Dustin Hoffman in this movie. But I acknowledge it. It is not without its flaws. One of the best documentaries ever made. I don't own a lot of documentaries, but Hoop Dreams, which I have in the Criterion Collection, shamefully not nominated at the Academy Awards. Roger Ebert, he put this movie on my radar. I owe Roger Ebert a lot. He put a lot of movies on my radar, and I remember him advocating for Hoop Dreams is what made me want to see Hoop Dreams, and that's why, as a critic, I like to advocate for films, because I remember that Roger Ebert would do that for me, and I would like to do that for movies that I enjoy. This is a new one to the collection, a relatively new, House. Not the TV show, but the Japanese horror film. I watched this on the Criterion channel because I'd heard people talk about it, and it was so bonkers and yet still kind of so up my alley. Even though it was available to stream on the Criterion channel, I said, you know what? I need this in physical media form. So I picked up House at the next Criterion sale, and I'm very happy to have it. If you haven't seen it, it is a nutso kind of a Japanese Suspiria type of a horror film, and I like it a lot. Not really a movie, but, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, a classic Christmas TV show or TV special. And, they used to air on every channel the same year, so it's like, why buy it? But now, who even knows where it's going to air or where it's going to stream? So I'm glad that I have it on physical media. That's another yearly watch for me. Hunger Games 4-movie collection. So Hunger Games, Catching Fire, Mockingjay Part 1, Part 2. I like those movies fine, especially Catching Fire. Again, not sure why I own them. It was probably on sale for $10, and I just picked it up. Physical media collectors are addicted to collecting movies, but we're also addicted, if you're a collector, you know this, to value. Even if they're movies that you're like, oh, I'm not so sure about that one. If it's a good deal, you're going to pick it up. And that was the case with The Hunger Games for me. Catherine Bigelow, The Hurt Locker, Best Picture winner, a groundbreaking win for her as well for Best Director. So I'm happy to have that one. I owe that one a rewatch. It's been a while. Ooh, In Bruges. I love this movie. Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell in Bruges, as the title would indicate. Colin Farrell particularly is great in this film. One of the great dysfunctional, not even really friendships, but relationships between two people, and Ralph Fiennes as the crime boss. Again, Ralph Fiennes just coming in and owning things as he often does. In the Heat of the Night, Criterion Edition, when I was a kid, I thought In the Heat of the Night was just a TV show starring Carol O'Connor. And then I found out that it was actually a very, very, very good movie starring Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger. A great kind of encapsulation of its era, and a very, very good movie. In the Heights. I liked this movie. Nobody really went to see it. It was, again, part of that first post-COVID summer, and it was, I believe, also a day-and-date streamer on HBO Max. But I'm kind of a sucker for musicals. I had not seen In the Heights before, and I liked this movie a lot, and so I picked it up on physical media. Great thriller from the 90s. In the Line of Fire, starring Clint Eastwood and John Malkovich. Dustin Hoffman, one of the best villain performances of the 90s. John Malkovich in this movie, also one of the best villain performances of the 90s. And, kind of some of the last days of Clint Eastwood as a believable action movie or thriller lead. He would kind of start going into his old man roles pretty soon after that. Christopher Nolan's Inception on 4K. Incredibly influential film, a movie that I enjoy very much. I know that people will kind of give it some guff for the complicated nature of its plot, but it's one of those movies you're going to have to go with the concept or you're not going to go with the concept, and I go with the concept. I like it, and early Tom Hardy as well, too. The Incredible Hulk, an older Blu-ray of mine, and an MCU film that I don't dislike. I feel like people have come around a bit on The Incredible Hulk, but for a while it was regarded as, for many people, like a piece of garbage, and I disagree with that. Also, one of the rare Blu-rays that's not blue. It's got the green case, which I like. It's got the lenticular art. Keystone movie from my adolescence, Independence Day, blew my mind. One of the first big CGI epics, and I probably saw this movie 4 or 5 times in theaters. Not a great movie, but one that I'll never forget, and one that I have fond memories of as a teenager. Indiana Jones, The Complete Adventures. No longer The Complete Adventures. This was put out quite some time ago. Over 10 years ago, I believe, and it included what were at that time the 4 Indiana Jones movies. There's now a 5th one that I don't own. So I also have, I think, coming up, there's a box set of Star Wars, The Complete Saga, which is not The Complete Saga. So yeah, Lucasfilm, pre-Disney, put out a lot of box sets of the complete versions of all of their characters, and then sold to Disney, and then they made a bunch more movies starring those characters. Inglourious Bastards is a movie I've owned for a very long time, but recently updated to 4K. I think this was a Black Friday purchase because it was at a good price. And why not? Why not purchase my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie in a little bit higher resolution for a good price? So that's a recent upgrade for me. I've owned it since 2010, 2011, whenever it came out. This is another one I love, Ingrid Goes West. Starring Elizabeth Olsen and Aubrey Plaza. A great performance from Aubrey Plaza. She kind of becomes obsessed with this influencer and kind of a single white female type thing, although not quite in the murder thriller genre, but just a really awkward movie, but a good one about kind of modern day connections. If you haven't seen Ingrid Goes West, I recommend that one. I think my favorite Pixar film is Inside Out. I don't own Inside Out 2, but I own the first movie, and it was one I didn't really expect much from. I didn't expect it to be as deep about the human condition as it was, and it indeed was very deep about the human condition. I do own Interstellar from Christopher Nolan, because even though I may be a little cooler on the film than some people, I cannot deny that it is one of the best looking and one of the most impressive scientific and technical marvels of modern filmmaking, meaning, let's say 21st century on. And so it is great to have, because I'll throw it on maybe once every 2 or 3 years just to look at it. This is also kind of a newer acquisition for me, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the remake from the 1970s, and I think I just watched it for the first time last year maybe, or even sometime this year, and really enjoyed it. I already knew the ending because that's one of the most famous movie spoilers of all time, but I liked watching the whole movie. Just a great paranoia thriller. One of the rare Netflix original films to hit physical release, The Irishman on the Criterion Collection. I really almost got it because it's like, well, I just want to own a Netflix movie and have it in my hands. It's rare that you see that. There's a couple more that are coming. There's a big one, I forget which, that just got announced for Criterion recently. So they're loosening those restrictions a little bit, but still rare to get a Netflix movie on DVD. Then we got the Iron Man movies. The first Iron Man, of course, famously kicking off the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Nobody really knew what they were getting themselves into with that one. Iron Man 2, not as good as the first movie, but not a horrifically bad movie. And then Iron Man 3, which a lot of people didn't like because it was very Shane Blackified. A lot of Lethal Weapon buddy comedy type stuff with Don Cheadle and Robert Downey Jr., but I like it. Then we have the TV miniseries version of Stephen King's It, an absolute all-time great performance from Tim Curry as Pennywise, even though Bill Skarsgård's performance is very, very different. I think that Tim Curry is still great, but that suffers from a lack of budget and being made in the 80s. And then the two recent films, recent now, almost 10 years old, I guess at this point, we have the first It movie from Andy Muschietti, which I think is very, very good, and It Chapter 2, which I don't think is as good, but it still has Bill Skarsgård in it. And then Welcome to Derry. It just wrapped up its run on HBO Max. You can check out that review right here on the channel. If you've watched this 2+ hour video so far, why not watch another one while you're here? Sure. And we're back with a new batch. For you, it's been a few seconds. For me, it's been a whole day. I slept, I prepped charts, I did all kinds of stuff, but we're still going through these movies. It Follows. It is a good horror movie. I didn't go as crazy over it as a lot of people did, but I enjoyed it. I think it's a good one. It Happened One Night. Great Criterion version, great classic movie, kind of a template for a lot of what you would call the modern day rom-com in there. If you haven't seen that one of the few movies to win all those, like the top 5 Oscars. It's a Wonderful Life. As I'm filming this, we're right around Christmas. This is one of those movies I try to watch every Christmas. Absolute stone cold classic. The Jack Ryan 5 movie collection. I've watched 4 of these, I think. 4 out of these 5. Maybe 3. Anyway, good spy dramas, and again, probably $10 on sale. That's a running theme here. Jackie Brown, Quentin Tarantino movie. I think it's one of his most underrated films. It suffered from not being Pulp Fiction when it was released, but it's still very good. This is a great collection from Criterion. The Complete Jacques Tati. If you don't know who Jacques Tati is, he is or was a French director with a great ability to use cinematic language for humor and comedy. A lot of modern comedians and a lot of modern comedy films owe a lot to Jacques Tati. Wes Anderson owes a lot to Jacques Tati. Stunningly beautiful films. He's in a lot of these movies. He's a great comedian himself on screen, a largely silent character. So Jacques Tati, if you've not seen Jacques Tati films, there's some that are more famous than others. They're all good. They're all good movies. Well, this is a big one. You know it's in my collection. Jaws, my favorite movie of all time on 4K. I watch this movie at least once a year. The poster is behind me on every single video, and it's great. One of the best movies ever made. Then we have Jaws 2. Not as good as the first movie. Kind of a prototype for the less good, but still very similar sequel. Jaws 3 or Jaws 3D, which is a ridiculous, ridiculous movie. And somehow they made an even more ridiculous movie next. Jaws the Revenge, the 4th Jaws movie. Hilariously bad. Offensively bad probably when it came out, hilariously bad now. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Kevin Smith. This came out my freshman year in college, and I was very excited about this movie, and I still think it's a fun movie. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. Many years after Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, as I said, I have a soft spot for Kevin Smith. I like his movies a lot. The Jerk, Steve Martin, one of the best comedies ever made, directed by Carl Reiner. Absolutely hilarious film. One of the best comedic performances of all time, I think, in a movie by Steve Martin. Jerry Maguire from Cameron Crowe, Tom Cruise, Renee Zellweger. Maybe one of those movies, pound for pound, that put more quotes into the mainstream, pop culture mainstream, than any other movie. Christmas Season, Jingle All the Way, Put That Cookie Down. Not a great movie. It's interesting that this movie has become such a classic because it kind of came and went when it was released, but I think that my generation helped to boost it up, and then other generations have as well. Jodorowsky's Dune. I actually did finally get around to watching this documentary, and it is a very good documentary about a movie that never was. And if you're into Dune, this is a great peek at a movie that we could have gotten, but never did actually get. Then we've got these movies, John Wick. Keanu Reeves kind of revived his career, or I mean, his career wasn't dead, but he got a new life to his career in kind of a different sort of genre. John Wick Chapter 2. I have all these movies, as you'll see. I like them very much. John Wick 3, Parabellum, Chapter 3, and then we have John Wick, Chapter 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's how numbers work. All right, what do we have here? Oh, Jojo Rabbit. Oscar winner for Best Original Screenplay, I believe, from Taika Waititi. Has not made a movie as good since, but this is quite a film. And Scarlett Johansson nominated for this movie. Really funny comedy and a great kind of example of a comedy high wire act, because it's a rough pitch if you're just pitching the movie, but it's a great movie. I own Joker, which is interesting because I didn't love the movie, although Joaquin Phoenix's performance is brilliant. So I'm not exactly sure why I own it, other than, again, probably on sale for cheap. I do not have Joker Folie à Deux, and that is not a movie that I would buy for cheap. I won't buy any movie that's cheap. The Jungle Book, 2016, Jon Favreau. I really think that this is a great way to take the animated classic and kind of spin it in its own direction. And Jurassic World 5 movie collection. This is a bit of a misnomer because it's not. This is Jurassic Park in 4K, along with The Lost World and Jurassic Park 3, and then Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. As I recall, I did not have Jurassic Park in 4K, and I could have bought the one movie, or again, for the sale price, I could have just bought all 5 for about the same. So I went ahead and got all 5. So yes, Jurassic World is on my shelf, as is Jurassic World Dominion. Why? This must have been a hell of a sale. Because I mean, I didn't really even like this movie that much. This was my completionist phase. It's like, well, I need to own all the Jurassic World movies and Jurassic Park movies, even though I don't like more than half of them. I must own them. It's a sickness. Justice League. I believe I bought this because why did I buy this? It must have been $5 or something, and I think that I was working on or thinking about working on a project of like recutting Justice League or something. I'm like, I need a high definition version of Justice League. That must have been how I justified that to myself. Although I don't hate that movie. The Karate Kid, the original, one of the most iconic, great 80s movies, and it holds up because I can tell you, I didn't watch this movie when I was a kid. I saw it when I was much older and still like it very much. Kill Bill Volume 1 on DVD. Kill Bill Volume 2 on, I just said DVD, on Blu-ray. Kill Bill Volume 2 on Blu-ray, and I hope that I will someday get to replace both of these with The Whole Bloody Affair, because I saw that in theaters and liked it a lot, and I'd like to own it and have these both as one movie. This is a great early Stanley Kubrick film, The Killing, kind of a noir-type film starring Sterling Hayden. If you say that you've seen all the Stanley Kubrick's movies, but you really just mean the popular ones, see The Killing, because it's a great movie. That was kind of, for me, like, oh yeah, this guy is going to be great. I mean, I wasn't around, but I would have thought that at the time. Peter Jackson's King Kong, not a fantastic movie. This was an upgrade for me because I had it on DVD, but not a terrible movie. It's a little too long, but he does a lot of the emotion very well. King Kong Escapes. This I bought because I was doing the Godzilla Kong ranking video. This is not a good movie, but this was a way for me to get it cheap. And then King Kong versus Godzilla. Also not a very good movie, and part of the Criterion Godzilla collection that I have, but I think I bought it, again, for cheap before I had that Criterion set. King Ralph. John Goodman's great in this film, which is from the late 1980s, where he becomes the King of England because the whole royal line is wiped out, and he's the only person with royal blood left, but he's this kind of schlubby American guy. Not a great movie. That's a nostalgia pick for me. King Richard. Boy. This movie got seen in a different context after the Academy Awards, didn't it? I think that might have been an awards season thing, or it was cheap. I'm not sure. Ooh, Kingdom of the Spiders. This stars William Shatner as a small-town veterinarian in a town that is taken over by spiders. Not like big spiders, but like actual just thousands of tarantulas. And it's silly and stupid and ridiculous, and I love it so much. That was a long time I was waiting to upgrade that from DVD to Blu-ray. Kingsman: The Secret Service, really fun spy movie. Taron Egerton, fantastic in it as well. I like the first Kingsman movie. This one's okay. Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I don't think it's as good as the first one. I do not own The King's Man, although I didn't hate that movie either. The first Kingsman movie, though, for me, that's really where it's at. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Shane Black movie. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. One of his best performances in any movie. Kind of heralded the return of Robert Downey Jr. as well. If you haven't seen Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that's a great movie. And then we got Knives Out. Wake Up Dead Man, now streaming on Netflix. They didn't pay me to say that. I love Knives Out. I still think this is the best of the 3 movies, although I really, really like Wake Up Dead Man a lot. And I'm hoping maybe that Netflix puts that out. And Glass Onion while you're at it on physical media, because I'd love to own all 3 of them. Kong Skull Island. I really, really like this movie a lot. I know that there are some people that don't love it, but I do. I think it's a really fun movie. Kubo and the Two Strings from Laika, a great stop motion animated film that was not very widely seen when it came out and largely ignored on a lot of the awards circuit, but one that I think is very good. I think I had this the last time I did this. This is maybe my most obscure movie, Cuffs, starring Christian Slater, who plays a cop, or I think his brother is killed, and he becomes a cop, and his name is actually Cuffs. I believe it is, let's see, George Cuffs is Christian Slater's character's name in this movie. This was maybe my silliest purchase. I haven't even seen this movie since I was a kid, but there was just, when I saw that Shout had put out a version of Cuffs, this Christian Slater movie that I remember watching when I was a kid, I said, that must be on my shelf, even though I have not watched it since I bought it. Something about myself, I just feel better knowing that Cuffs is on my shelf. I can't explain to you why. Kundun from Martin Scorsese. I bought this because I was trying to watch all of Martin Scorsese's films. This is actually one of the, I think, 2 or 3 that I have not yet watched, but I want to watch. So I've got to get around to that someday. L.A. Confidential, great noir from Curtis Hanson, won an Academy Award for Kim Basinger. This movie is very good. Great ensemble cast as well. La La Land. I love this movie. I still do. I've watched it. You know, I know that there's the talking points about it and this guy explaining jazz and all this stuff. But I like I said, I'm a sucker for musicals. I think that's a great modern musical. And I love the style of that film. Labyrinth, starring the late, great David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly and a bunch of Muppets and a whole other group of things. One of my favorite classic Disney animation films, Lady and the Tramp. I think this is put out in like 1955, but I still love it. It's probably my top 5 for all of Disney animation. I just think it's a really cool movie, even though, again, as with most classic Disney films, there are some elements that have not aged as well. This is another Lon Harris special, The Lady Eve, which I've heard is very good, but have not yet watched. So once again, I apologize, Lon. I've not watched it yet, but I will, I promise. And then Schwarzenegger, Last Action Hero, meta action movie, critically derided, did not do great at the box office, but has had a pretty long life. This movie was going to be huge. There were action figures and everything, and then it wasn't. But I would say that it has lived on. Props, by the way, to that Last Action Hero DVD cover for just using the poster for the movie, because I think that's the way you should do it. The Last Starfighter has been on my shelf forever, and I've yet to watch it. I hear it's great. I don't even remember how I got it, but I do have it, and I haven't seen it. Last Night in Soho from Edgar Wright, one of my favorite directors. I think I've rewatched this movie once. It's not one of my favorites of his, but he's such a really good filmmaker, just cinematically, the way that he uses the camera and everything. I wanted to have it on my shelf. Another Martin Scorsese film, The Last Temptation of Christ, Criterion Collection, very controversial when it was released. I think this is a very good movie. It's a very long movie, but a very good movie starring Willem Dafoe as Jesus. And I think it's a way that you can operate and talk about faith in ways that may seem controversial, but when you dive down into it, I think it is very much about, the scriptures and what you read about. It's just depicting something that you don't usually see when it comes to the life of Jesus. Lawrence of Arabia. I don't have it on 4K. I should probably update it at some point. But really, if you haven't, seeing this on the big screen is like a pilgrimage for movie fans. If you haven't seen Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen, go see this movie in a theater and tell me that it doesn't make a difference watching a movie in a theater versus at home. Because as great as this movie looks on television, it's got nothing on seeing it in a theater, a good print in a theater. Absolutely. So it's like a religious experience for film lovers. At least it was for me. The Lego Batman movie, really funny movie. I like the Lego movies in general, as you'll see. Will Arnett voicing Batman, and I love Batman, so that helps too. Then we have the Lego movie, which really surprised me because I thought it was just going to be kind of a cynical cash-in toy tie-in, but it was a really funny movie. And I also have the Lego movie, the second part. I don't think I've rewatched it, but I remember liking it in theaters. Not as good as the first, but I remember liking it. Not a terrible film. Leprechaun 7-film collection. So if you think that one Leprechaun film is too many to have on your shelf, well, how about 7? That was one where it was like $5. And I was like, 7 movies for $5? I don't care what the franchise is. I can't turn that down. Les Miserables. I'm actually not a huge fan of this adaptation of the musical. Les Miserables is maybe my favorite Broadway musical of all time. And I don't think that it was directed very well, but there are some good performances. And in a pinch, I can deal with it. Russell Crowe, though. Oof. It's not that he's terrible. It's just that they gave him a role that would be very challenging for a musical theater actor, which he is not. and it just, you can tell. Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think that I know I've seen 1 and 2. I think I might have seen 3, but I have not seen 4. I need to sit down and just watch all of those at some point. Liar Liar starring Jim Carrey. I think this might be my favorite Jim Carrey comedy. And I know you've got The Mask and Ace Ventura and all of the other ones, but he's so freaking funny in this movie, and also like allowed to be himself a little bit more. It's not hidden behind this huge broad character or, literal mask. The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou from Wes Anderson. This is the Criterion edition. I didn't really love this movie when it came out. I've warmed to it a lot over the years. I think you just have to kind of know what the tone is and what you're getting yourself into. One of my favorite documentaries called Life Itself. There was a narrative film called Life Itself that came out a few years later, but this is the documentary about Roger Ebert, who, if you know this channel, you know is pretty much my film critic hero. And I read the book, and this is a very good documentary telling of that book. So if you don't know much about Roger Ebert, that is the documentary to see. Life of Pi. A really good movie, directed by Ang Lee, won a few different Oscars, and stunning looking movie. That's why I have it in 4K. This was one of those, like 5 4Ks for $20 or something sale, and Life of Pi was in there, and I was like, yes, please. I'll do that. I'll buy Life of Pi for that. Lincoln, directed by Steven Spielberg. I like this movie. I know some people find it slow, which it is. But I think Daniel Day-Lewis is fantastic, and I like a good procedural, like a historical procedural, which is pretty much what that movie is. The Lion King, the 1994 original animated film, one of Disney Animation's best, and the movie that they would put on at recess every day when it was rainy or too cold at school. Little Shop of Horrors, great movie musical. And I think this also has the alternate version with the alternate ending in it, which I actually like. I understand why it was cut, but I like the alternate ending to this movie. That might be the Rick Moranis performance. If you're like, why do people like Rick Moranis so much? Watch Little Shop of Horrors and tell me you don't love him. The Lobster, great absurdist comedy, Yorgos Lanthimos. I think that this might have been the first Yorgos Lanthimos movie that I ever saw, and I didn't quite know what to make of it for a while, but once I understood what wavelength that movie was on, it was very much for me. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. It seems kind of quaint now, but this was kind of a revolutionary style in the late 90s when it hit. Kind of a breakthrough for Guy Ritchie, a breakthrough for Jason Statham and Vinnie Jones and a lot of people in the cast. And I think still kind of a fun British movie. I appreciate the Blu-ray because you can put the subtitles on. Logan. What we thought was the farewell to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and it kind of was, that version anyway. It's still a very good movie, and one that I've revisited a few times. As I mentioned, London Has Fallen, part of the Has Fallen franchise starring Gerard Butler, and I saw this in theaters and remembered liking it on a dumb movie level, which is really how those movies should best be enjoyed. The Lord of the Rings trilogy in 4K. I think maybe I own the Hobbit movies because they came with these movies. I think maybe it was like a whole Middle-earth box set and you got both. And I was like, well, it's a good price. And if I get Lord of the Rings with it, then yeah, sure, I'll take the Hobbit movies as well. The Lost Boys in 4K. This one I didn't find until maybe 5 years or so. I mean, I knew of it, but I didn't watch it until 5 years or so ago. And I really like it. I think it is a great piece of 80s horror, 80s cheese. Lost in Translation. Bill Murray, I think, still should have gotten the Academy Award for this movie, especially because Sean Penn would go on to win another Oscar a few years after that. So we could have had Bill Murray with his and still gotten Sean Penn his Oscar because he's great in this movie. Love, Simon is a movie I like a lot. There's been a TV show made of it since then. And this is just it's a good teen movie, first of all, and then it's a movie about a gay teen as well. So you have both of those things, but I just think it's really, really well written, and it's got a lot of heart, a lot of compassion. All right, we're moving into the M's, and what better movie to kick us off than Mac and Me, Paul Rudd's favorite movie to pull from every time he appears on Conan O'Brien. A ridiculous movie that was a ripoff of E.T., sponsored by McDonald's. Really, I can't think of a better way to show off 80s capitalism at its finest. One of my favorite movies of all time, Mad Max Fury Road in 4K. One of the best movies of the 21st century. I don't care if you don't like it. I like it very much. And it goes on that list of a movie that I could probably sit down and watch anytime. Malcolm X from the Criterion Collection, Denzel Washington. I am ashamed to say that I have not sat down and watched the entire thing yet. I haven't seen the entire movie, and I need to. This is probably, like, if I'm making a list of the movies on my shelf that I have not seen, Malcolm X is probably should be number 1 or number 2. Mallrats from Kevin Smith, follow up to Clerks. Most people disappointed in this movie. I think it's a very different kind of silly movie, but also fun in its own way. Man of Steel. I rewatched this year for my Superman ranking video, and my feelings on this movie really have not changed in the 10 plus years since it came out. I think it's got some high highs and some low lows, but Henry Cavill is great in the part. I can't deny that. Man on the Moon. This is one, Kino Lorber finally put this out. I was waiting forever to upgrade from DVD for Man on the Moon. And Jim Carrey, criminally overlooked for an Academy Award 2 years in a row. 1 year it was for this film. He plays the comedian Andy Kaufman, and he is brilliant in the movie, and the movie is fantastic, and the Oscars don't make any sense. And this is the Man with No Name trilogy. So all 3 Sergio Leone westerns that really kind of made Clint Eastwood cinematically, and very, very good movies. They hold up. They really do. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly I didn't see until maybe 2 or 3 years ago for the first time, and I loved it. All right, let's keep going with another one from the Criterion Collection, the original Manchurian Candidate, which has several fantastic performances and a great piece of 60s paranoia about a soldier being brainwashed. Frank Sinatra's great in this movie. Angela Lansbury, great in this movie. Mandy, great unhinged Nicolas Cage performance. Great performance from Andrea Riseborough. And just a weird-ass movie that I liked. So I'm hit or miss on weird-ass movies, but that one I liked. The Martian, or The Martian, starring Matt Damon. Stranded on Mars. The Mask, starring Jim Carrey. That one's also probably up there for, I think, the best early Jim Carrey comedy. Very, very entertaining movie. I like that it's kind of stuck around. I still see references to The Mask. Tour de force performance from Jim Carrey and Cameron Diaz. First time I'd ever laid eyes on her, and I was 11 years old when that movie came out, and I learned some things about myself. Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World. Oh, so good. I wish we could have gotten 7 more of these movies, but they were so expensive and this one didn't do well. But I love this movie so much. Russell Crowe out on the high seas, palling around with Paul Bettany. What more could you want? That was so upset that movie didn't do better. Masters of the Universe, the 1987 Dolph Lundgren version. Stupid, stupid movie with a great performance from Frank Langella. I watched this movie 100 times when I was a kid. There was never an option where this is not on my shelf. Matinee. John Goodman's great in this movie. And it is also one of the more obscure, I think, movies maybe in my collection. I wish they had put the real actual poster art on the DVD cover here because the poster is hanging up in my hallway. It's one of my favorite posters from the 90s. John Goodman plays this kind of huckster movie theater promoter during the Cuban Missile Crisis, and it's a really good film. Did they put the actual poster on the DVD cover? No, they did not. Well, that's a shame. Matrix trilogy, Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Revolutions. I guess it's no longer technically a trilogy, but this is the trilogy of original films, and then they went and made a 4th movie. I mean, one of the most influential series of the late 20th, early 21st century, even though, the sequels aren't as good. Mean Girls. I came to this one late, didn't see it in theaters. It just seemed like a movie that kind of came and went, and then I kept seeing people referencing it, and eventually I did see it, and I was like, actually, you know what? That's a pretty funny movie. I get why people keep referencing it, and eventually it went on the shelf. Meet the Parents. I think we're getting a 4th one of these movies next year. We're going to meet the Fockers or Fockers-in-Law or whatever. Just a great early 2000s comedy, and kind of showed us a different side of Robert De Niro, or at least one that we had not seen as much. He's done so many different movies and weird movies and comedies now, it kind of lost its novelty. But in the year 2000, it was pretty special for us to see that. He'd done Analyze This, and then this kind of fell into that bucket for him. Memento, the movie that brought us Christopher Nolan, and I think it still holds up. It's not as ambitious as maybe some of Nolan's other films, but I think it's still good, and I like the structure and everything else. The Men in Black trilogy, Men in Black 1, 2, and 3. 1, I still think is a really good movie. 2, I still think is a very bad movie. 3, I think is an okay movie, with Josh Brolin doing a dead-on Tommy Lee Jones. The Meteor Man. I don't know if you remember this movie. Robert Townsend kind of an original superhero film, almost an entirely black cast, and he wanted to bring some representation to the superhero genre. And when people talk about black superhero films, a lot of people will always overlook The Meteor Man. But I remember The Meteor Man. I had the comic books, and I watched it in theaters, and I rented it several times when I was a kid, and I haven't rewatched it recently, but it's a who's who. The cast of that movie is a who's who. Midsommar, the second film, the second film from Ari Aster, which I think I like a little bit more now than I did when I first saw it, and a great performance from Florence Pugh that introduced me and a lot of other people to Florence Pugh. Minari, which is set right here in Arkansas, and one of the better movies that came out that year. And I think that maybe if you missed it, I mean, it was nominated for Oscars and everything, but if you haven't seen it, it won Best Supporting Actress, but it's a very good family drama. Minority Report, great Steven Spielberg sci-fi film. I think one of the 2 movies he made in 2002, and really fun movie. Good Tom Cruise, good Colin Farrell in that film. Misery, rest in peace, Rob Reiner. This was his great horror film. He seemed to have had a great film in just about every genre. This was the great film in the horror genre, and a classic performance from Kathy Bates. James Caan is no slouch in that movie either. The first Mission Impossible film starring Tom Cruise, big summer blockbuster, directed by Brian De Palma that I really enjoyed. Mission Impossible 2 starring Tom Cruise, big summer blockbuster that I did not enjoy, directed by John Woo. I still don't think it's a very good movie. Mission Impossible 3, I like this movie a lot. It might be my favorite Mission Impossible film. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I like the film, and I like Philip Seymour Hoffman in this movie, and they kind of went back with the latest movie and tied this movie into everything else. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I like this movie. I remember seeing it in IMAX right around Christmas time, and it sort of rejuvenated the franchise. Mission Impossible Rogue Nation continued to rejuvenate the franchise, and I think, if Mission Impossible 3 is not the best movie in the franchise, this one would definitely be it. Or would it? Because now that I look at it, really, that 3, 4, 5, 6 run for Mission Impossible, because Mission Impossible Fallout is also a really good movie. So I don't know. I'm actually going to put it back up in the air what my favorite movie is, because I keep forgetting how good this run was. Henry Cavill doing his gun arms thing and a bunch of other stuff. And then I have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. Now, they retconned the title because it just says Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and they're trying to pretend like the movie's title wasn't Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 when it was released, but it was, and I don't have Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning. I will get it when it goes on sale. Moneyball, starring Brad Pitt. I feel like this movie has kind of gotten more popular since it came out, even though it was already a popular movie when it came out, and great sports drama. Monty Python and the Holy Grail, one of the best comedies ever made, even though it's been over 50 years since it was made. Absurdist, hilarious, ridiculous, all the great things I think you should want. And from a British comedy, I'm kind of I like the British sensibility. I like British humor. Moon, starring Sam Rockwell and Sam Rockwell from Duncan Jones. A great little sci-fi drama that I think was notable when it came out, but I'm not sure how many people still talk about it. They should be, though. Moonlight, the surprise Best Picture winner over La La Land, and it's a good movie in its own right. Everybody talks about the La La Land thing because that was one of the craziest things to ever happen, but it's also a very good movie, just without any of that stuff. And then we've got Michael Jackson Moonwalker, which I had on VHS when I was a kid. This is a weird movie. It's kind of like a biopic and a sci-fi movie and a music video compilation. The Smooth Criminal video, I don't know if it made its debut in this movie, but it's in this movie. Moulin Rouge from Baz Luhrmann. I really like this movie, even though it's super weird. It's a mix of pop music and melodrama and romance and all of that, but I've probably watched that more than a lot of other movies that are on the shelf. Mrs. Doubtfire, Robin Williams at his best. This is another movie that I'm happy to see is still hanging around. I still see people that refer to this movie, as well they should, because it is one of the great 90s comedies that's lived on past the 90s. Brendan Fraser's Mummy. This movie I was surprised to see has really maintained a following. I think the people my age kept it going long enough that it's moved on from generations, and it sounds like we're going to get another one. That's what they say anyway. I'm on board. Much better than the Tom Cruise Mummy, which is not on the shelf. My Neighbor Totoro from Studio Ghibli. Ooh, I love this movie. I think this might have been the first Studio Ghibli movie that I saw, and it wasn't very long ago. It was only 5 or 6 years ago, and this is a great one to start out with. Mystic River. Sean Penn won his Oscar over Bill Murray for this movie for a very, what I consider to be over-the-top performance, even though there are a lot of great performances in the movie, directed by Clint Eastwood, Dennis Lehane, crime, family drama. The Naked Gun trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, for my money. If you look at comedy trilogies, you don't get much better than the first 3 Naked Gun movies. And the new Naked Gun, I think, will eventually be on my shelf when that goes on sale just a little bit. Neighbors. This is the kind of movie that was for sale cheap. I probably wouldn't buy it today, but when it was on sale for like $8, I'd buy it because it's funny enough. And then Neighbors 2, also same thing, $5, $6. Yeah, I'll buy that. I enjoyed it enough. One of the best movies ever made, one of the most prescient movies ever made, and still one of the most relevant movies ever made, Network. Directed by Sidney Lumet, written by Patty Chayefsky, starring Robert Duvall and Faye Dunaway and William Holden and Peter Finch and all kinds of people. I could watch this movie anytime, any day, multiple days in a row. The dialogue and the way it's delivered is like music to my ears, and it foretold the media landscape of today. I mean, all the Netflix and Warner Brothers and Paramount drama, that's what this movie is about. These are 2 documentaries I really like, Never Sleep Again and Crystal Lake Memories, which are like 3 to 4 hour documentaries, separate documentaries about the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th series. They go into each movie extensively and talk to the cast members and everything else. If you like those franchises, those are great kind of granular documentaries. The New Adventures of Batman, these are more Batman cartoons that were on television. And again, I'm a nut for anything Batman, so if I see it on sale, I'm going to buy it. This is the other Martin Scorsese movie I haven't seen, New York, New York, his musical from the 1970s. I need to see that. I got to get on board with that. The Nice Guys, another Shane Black movie starring Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, a hilarious movie in the vein of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and it would actually make a good double feature. If I was programming a fun night at a theater, I'd program Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Nice Guys back to back. Then we have the Criterion Collection version of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, one of the most influential horror movies of all time. And also, hey, it whips some social messaging at you as well, with a complete metaphor that works. This is the Criterion edition of A Night to Remember, which was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first movie adaptations of the Titanic tragedy. And I think a lot of the moments that have entered the lexicon about the Titanic originated in this film. I actually hadn't seen it until earlier this year, and I think it's a very good movie. It drew heavily on eyewitness accounts and was considered to be a very accurate historical document at that time of the Titanic. Oh, what a dirty, grisly, grimy little movie. Nightcrawler, one of the best LA movies ever made. I watched it. I think this was one of the first movies I watched this year, and I fell in love with it all over again. Jake Gyllenhaal performance shamefully overlooked by the Academy. Nightmare Alley, which is a more recent Guillermo del Toro film, before Pinocchio and before Frankenstein. And this was in my top 10 list that year. I liked this movie a lot. Just a movie about bad people. This is the Nightmare on Elm Street collection on Blu-ray. I've had this forever. It includes everything up to New Nightmare, I think. And really, do you need anything else past New Nightmare? I don't really think you do. No Country for Old Men, winner of the Best Picture Academy Award. I would have given it to There Will Be Blood, but I can't begrudge it going to this movie, one of the Coen brothers' finest, and Javier Bardem delivering one of the best modern movie villains. No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's swan song as 007. I rewatched it earlier this year. I didn't like it as much as I remembered. It's very long, and, I don't know. They try to tie everything together with the other movies, and they don't really. It's got some good moments, but I don't know. They could have done better. Nobody. I think this is one of the first movies that came out post-COVID once theaters were reopening, and I think it's a fun movie. I liked it a lot more than Nobody 2, in that vein of John Wick, just with Bob Odenkirk instead of Keanu Reeves. Nope, from Jordan Peele. I'm a fan of this movie. I've watched it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it the first time I saw it, but on rewatch, I have to say, is it as good as Get Out? No, it's not, but I think it's good in its own way, and it's got its sort of twisted sense of humor to it as well. The Northman, great movie from a couple years ago from Robert Eggers, who is one of the most interesting directors working today. I don't always love his movies, but I always love his movie making. And this is a gritty, grimy movie. Alexander Skarsgård, more jacked than any human being should ever be. And also a great performance from Nicole Kidman thrown in there. This is one that came out about this time last year, Nosferatu, also from Robert Eggers. This was on my top 10 list last year. This was maybe my favorite Robert Eggers film, and I thought a great version of that story, very stylized, very stylistic, and with some tremendous performances from Nicholas Hoult and Lily Rose Depp, and really the entire cast. A great version of that story. Notes on a Scandal. I love this movie a lot. It stars Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench. Judi Dench is an older teacher. Cate Blanchett's a younger teacher. She starts having an affair with a student, and it's about is she going to be uncovered? I love these kind of, like, I don't know if you would call it a chamber drama, but it's just about the conflict between these two women, and both Cate Blanchett and Judi Dench are great in the movie. Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious Criterion Collection. At one point, I had to argue against this movie on Movie Fights, and I made a compelling case against it, which sucks because I really like this movie, but such was the nature of Movie Fights. Hitchcock at his best. It wasn't just, Psycho and those kinds of movies. It was movies like this. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? One of the best movies the Coen brothers ever made. John Goodman's really good in this, as is George Clooney, as are John Turturro and Tim Blake Nelson and everybody else in the film. Great retelling of the Odyssey. So maybe if you want to prep for Nolan's next film, you could watch Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? This is the Ocean's 4 film collection, 8, 11, 12, and 13. It sounds like me trying to count when I was in kindergarten. They're all good to a certain degree or other. Office Space is one of those movies that was not a success when it was released initially, but has had a legacy long past a lot of other movies that did better than it did at the box office. A great example of a movie's legacy not being written by how well it was received by audiences at the time. I think Comedy Central had a big part to play in that. Old School, one of the key comedies that came out while I was in college. A real breakout for Will Ferrell cinematically coming off of Saturday Night Live. And, I haven't rewatched it. My guess is that it probably still feels very 2000s, but in that time capsule kind of way. Olympus Has Fallen. It's the last of the Has Fallen movies that I featured, but it was the first one that came out. It was in that 2-movie race with White House Down, and I think this is... neither of them are great films, but this is my favorite of the two because it is kind of crazy and ridiculous. This I bought earlier this year. I was trying to catch up on everything that David Lynch did, and I wanted to see all of his stuff, and so I bought a copy. I don't know if this is an official copy of On the Air, which is a short-lived TV series that he co-created, but I haven't watched it yet. So if you're in the comments and you've seen On the Air, let me know. Tell me if I'd be wasting my time. On the Waterfront, great movie from Elia Kazan starring Marlon Brando. This is where you get the could have been a contender speech, and one of the great movies of the 1950s, a multiple Oscar winner. Of course, Elia Kazan and Naming Names and the McCarthy Committee kind of sullied his legacy in Hollywood, but it shouldn't sully this film because it's a great movie. This is maybe my first or favorite movie of the 21st century thus far, Oppenheimer. I adore this movie. As long as it is, I've probably seen it 5 or 6 times. It's another one that I can sit through. I just find something about this movie captivating. The performances, the writing, the filmmaking. I adore Oppenheimer. Orange County, another one of the big movies from my college years, and I think a really fun, cute, sweet little movie. Jack Black, young Colin Hanks, and comedy stars like you've got Catherine O'Hara in this movie, John Lithgow is in this movie, Kevin Kline is in this movie, Harold Ramis is in this movie. It's a great cast if you haven't seen Orange County. The Outsiders from Francis Ford Coppola. Stay Gold, Pony Boy. I haven't rewatched this one in a minute either, but I remember liking it when I saw it. Over the Top, starring Sylvester Stallone, the best movie ever about arm wrestling because it's the only movie ever about arm wrestling, but it's still enjoyable in its own 80s cheese way. Overlord. I vaguely remember seeing this movie and liking it. I want to say it's a World War II zombie movie, but I have not rewatched it since it came out. Pacific Rim from Guillermo del Toro. A lot of people didn't like this movie. I did enjoy this movie. I think it's big, dumb, loud, fun, and done very stylistically as well. And strangely, I only own Paddington 2. I don't own the original Paddington, but I do own Paddington 2. Some people would say that that's how it should be because Paddington 2 is a great movie. I should probably get the first Paddington movie. Or maybe it's kind of fitting that I only own Paddington 2. The Palm Beach Story. This is another Lon Harris special. Apologies, Lon. I have not yet watched it, but I should because you were very nice and you got me a Criterion Collection movie to watch at home. So Palm Beach Story. I like Preston Sturges. Another Criterion movie, Pan's Labyrinth from Guillermo del Toro, just like Pacific Rim. This is maybe his best movie. Even if it's not, it is a fantastic movie and a multi-Oscar nominated film. This is the 6-movie collection of Paranormal Activity. I think I've probably seen 3 of them, and I've heard that the other 3 aren't very good, and some would tell you that all 6 aren't very good, but when there's a sale and where there's a sale, you will find me. This is the Criterion Collection of Parasite, Best Picture winner, the first international film to win Best Picture, and a hell of a movie in its own right. One of the best movies of the century from Bong Joon-ho. Past Lives. I really liked this movie. A lot of times, I'll get a movie because it's kind of big on the award scene, and over time I'm like, is that movie so good? Yeah, no, this movie is really good. And Celine Song has gone on to do great things. Paths of Glory from Stanley Kubrick, one of my favorite Stanley Kubrick movies. And again, maybe not one of the ones that people talk about when they talk about Kubrick films, but they should. This is his entry into the courtroom drama genre / war genre. The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson. It is a ridiculous piece of American propaganda, but it's one that I enjoy. Heath Ledger in a supporting role. Jason Isaacs in a great snarling villain role. It's a Roland Emmerich Americana Revolutionary War movie, and you get exactly what you would expect. And then Pearl, which I very like, from Ty West, and a fantastic performance from Mia Goth. I thought that she should have been Oscar nominated for this movie. She is phenomenal in this film, part of the X trilogy. I own 2 out of 3 parts of the X trilogy, and we've already passed one of them, so you probably know the one that I don't own. All right, next up we have The Perfect Storm. I think this is a good example of a movie that was a big box office hit when it came out, but I don't know how many people have seen it today, based on the true story of the Andrea Gale, which is a ship that was out in a storm that some called perfect, hence the name of the movie. Peach Dragon, the original animated / live action hybrid from Disney. This is another one that I watched all the time when I was a kid. The redneck family who were initially taking care of Pete absolutely scared me. I still am scared of Shelley Winters to this day. The Phantom of the Opera at the Royal Albert Hall. This is a concert of the Phantom of the Opera, and I think it's just because I love the musical, and this is as close as I can get to having the Phantom of the Opera musical, other than the Joel Schumacher film. I think this is actually closer than that movie. So I bought that because I just like the music. Phantom Thread from Paul Thomas Anderson. Many people did not care for this film or thought it was a lesser work of his. I thought that it was a great portrait of 2 people, and the kind of twisted love story that develops in this movie is very good. Philadelphia, the movie that won Tom Hanks his first of 2 consecutive Oscars, along with Denzel Washington. A legal drama, a drama about AIDS, which if you were making that in 1993 was kind of a risky thing to do in Hollywood, and Jonathan Demme really directed the hell out of this movie. The Philadelphia Story, which is one of the great, again, you would call it a rom-com nowadays, if you were going to put it into a genre, with Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn, and Jimmy Stewart. You can't go wrong putting those 3 together. The Pianist, which won Adrian Brody his Academy Award for Best Actor. This was a DVD upgrade for me. Roman Polanski, obviously, a lot to unpack there. And I don't know necessarily what it says that the Academy gave him the Oscar for directing this film, but I don't think it takes away from the power of this film and the power of Adrian Brody's performance in particular. Pig, starring Nicolas Cage. This is one of the weirder concepts that I can remember in recent years, but it's also a really, really good movie. It's odd. It's an odd film, but I like it. And then we have Pineapple Express, again, very emblematic of its time, that sort of 2008 to 2012 comedy scene, but a very funny movie. Danny McBride kind of helped him break out, and then you've got the Seth Rogen, James Franco team up there. Yeah, I still like this film, even though it's a bit dated, I guess, by today's standards. All right, let's keep this P train going. Doesn't sound right. This is maybe my favorite classic Disney animated film, Pinocchio. Just, I don't know what it is about this movie. Again, probably a lot of it childhood nostalgia. Probably a lot of it just the artistry and the craft in the animation for this film, but I like it a lot. Again, I bought a lot of these before there was a Disney Plus. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Really shocked everybody with how good it was. Johnny Depp got a Best Actor nomination for that film. Still a really fun movie. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Overlong, but a lot of really great stuff and some great visual effects work. And Bill Nighy's good in this movie. People have tried to convince me otherwise. I've given the movie several shots. I'm just not a huge fan of Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. I think it's messy. I don't think it's as good as the other two. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, one of the few essential Thanksgiving films. John Candy and Steve Martin, maybe the performance of John Candy's career. They named his documentary after a line in this movie. Planet Earth. Oh, one of the best nature documentary series of all time. If I was a billionaire, I would hire David Attenborough to come to my house and read me a story every night. And then Planet Earth 2, which I think I've seen some of, but not all of, but really, just get it. The stunning photography. I mean, the way that it captures this planet that we live on is incredible. Platoon, a Best Picture winner from Oliver Stone, and one of the toughest movies to watch about the Vietnam War. Most of them are tough to watch, as they should be. The Player, which is a Criterion Collection edition. This is a great inside movies thing from Robert Altman. The studio took a lot of inspiration, I guess, from this show. And Bryan Cranston's character actually has the same name as the Tim Robbins character, I'm pretty sure, in this movie. I don't know if that was an homage or if this is like they're all in one unified universe. Point Break, directed by Catherine Bigelow, starring Keanu Reeves and the late great Patrick Swayze. An absolutely ridiculous film that I enjoy watching. I was not very well versed in old school Jackie Chan, and I took a flyer on Police Story and Police Story 2, and boy was I glad I did, because these are two great action films, and Jackie Chan was out of his mind in every sense of the word when he was making these movies. Poltergeist, love this movie. It's another one that I watch almost every Halloween. Tobe Hooper is credited as director. Steven Spielberg was involved to some extent, but it's just a really good movie. Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping. I've been listening to the Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast, and I rewatched this movie this year, inspired by listening to those guys talk about it. And God, hilarious and underappreciated. The Lonely Island seems to have a thing where their movies are not appreciated when they come out in theaters, but I appreciate them. Portrait of a Lady on Fire, fantastic film from, I think, 2019. That would have made my top 10 list that year if I had seen it in time, and just a heartbreaking story, but also kind of hopeful in its own way. The Poseidon Adventure, great 70s disaster movie. I think one of the only 70s disaster movies, if not the only one that I own. A great ensemble cast. And again, cheesy, yes. Do I love it? Yes. The original Predator film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers. One of the great 80s action films, and I think pretty close to a perfect action movie. The Prestige from Christopher Nolan, one of his few movies that was not a massive box office hit, but has become put up at the top of his canon retroactively since it came out, and rightfully so. It's a good movie. Once again, rest in peace, Rob Reiner, the late, great Rob Reiner. I have several of his movies, and The Princess Bride. Again, not appreciated when it came out at the box office, but has built a legacy that endures to this day. I mean, this movie is a stone-cold classic. Private Parts, the Howard Stern movie. This was another movie that I waited forever to come out on Blu-ray to upgrade from DVD. I think that it's a good movie, especially if you know Howard Stern. I didn't really know about him the first time I saw it. I've listened to him since he made his move to satellite radio, and I think this is a good movie. Paul Giamatti giving a great comedic supporting performance as Pig Vomit in the movie, and I always think about WNBC. Problem Child, another big movie from my childhood about, it's all right there in the title there, a child that might be the devil incarnate. John Ritter, the late John Ritter, giving a great comedic performance. And it's a dumb movie. It's a stupid movie, but I like it. The Producers, the original Mel Brooks film, one of the greatest comedies ever made. I believe it won the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay, and it should have. Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder. What a comedic duo they were. And then I have the movie adaptation of The Producers musical. It is not as good as the original Producers movie, and it's not as good as the musical was on stage, but I really like the musical, and so I bought this, even though they went with Hollywood stunt casting instead of getting the more theatrical parts, the people that were better suited for the show, but they put Hollywood actors into a lot of the roles. Promising Young Woman, a great movie from 2020. I think this would have been number one on my list if it had been a regular year. Psycho, classic Alfred Hitchcock movie. This is the 50th anniversary edition, which means that I bought it in 2010, or at least this edition came out in 2010, and it's great. And then I also have the Psycho complete 4-movie collection. I think between my 2 Alfred Hitchcock box sets and this one and Psycho, I own the same movie 4 times, which happens when you're a collector. Sometimes you have the same movie more than once. And then Pulp Fiction, Quentin Tarantino, his breakout film. For many years considered to be his best film, although I think that is very much now up for debate. I like Pulp Fiction, I do, but I think it is up for debate. Punch Drunk Love from Paul Thomas Anderson, starring Adam Sandler, both really hitting heights in this movie. It's over 20 years old now, which is hard for me to believe. A lot of people did not think that Adam Sandler would work in a movie like this, and he did. It's a really good performance. I owe this one a rewatch. I've seen it a few times, but it's been several years since I saw it. The Queen, an Oscar winner for Helen Mirren, and I think she's great in it, about the days following the death of Princess Diana. A Quiet Place, really, really good horror movie. John Krasinski knocked it out of the park with this one. And Emily Blunt, fantastic in the movie as well, as are the kids. I like the kind of small horror that kind of confines settings. A Quiet Place Part 2, obviously one of those movies that was delayed by COVID. I don't think it's as good as the first one, but I still think that it is a pretty solid movie, as are all of the Quiet Place films that I've seen. Raging Bull. This is the Criterion edition of one of Martin Scorsese's best films, one of De Niro's best performances, the story of a man who just can't get out of his own way. One of the great action movies of all time, The Raid Redemption. I haven't seen this in a few years. I need to rewatch this. I think this is a fantastic film. And even better is the sequel, The Raid 2. I think if I have a free afternoon sometime in the next month or so, I'm just going to sit down and rewatch The Raid Redemption and The Raid 2 because they're both phenomenal action films. And Rain Man, Best Picture winner, Best Actor winner for Dustin Hoffman. And Tom Cruise, I think, underrated for his work in this movie. Raising Arizona from the Coen brothers. There are a lot of filmmakers who consider this to be the Coen brothers' best film, starring Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter. And I believe it would be appropriate for me to say... Yes, it would be appropriate for me to say John Goodman, really good in this movie. Rambo, First Blood Part 2. As unlike the first movie as any 2 films in one franchise can be, it leaned into all of the 80s 80s action conventions. Then we have Rambo 3, a very interesting film about Rambo going and fighting alongside the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. At the time, it made sense. Ready or Not, which was a movie that took me to a Schmoedown victory. It's kind of my anti-Burbs and a really, really good horror movie. I think we're getting a sequel to Ready or Not in 2026, and I'm excited about that. Ready Player One. This is not a popular film amongst many Steven Spielberg fans. I find it to be a whole lot of fun. Maybe it's because of all the nostalgia, but I just think it's a good time. It's not anything groundbreaking, but I think it's a good time. Rebecca, which won Best Picture, another movie from Alfred Hitchcock and an adaptation of the book. It's one that I watched maybe 5 to 7 years ago, rewatched and really, really liked. Red Dragon, which was Anthony Hopkins returning to the role of Hannibal Lecter in the prequel version. This was made as Manhunter by Michael Mann, but they came and did the Anthony Hopkins version. I think it's pretty good. It's okay. It's not the best. Requiem for a Dream, one of the roughest watches, a Darren Aronofsky film. This came out when I was in college and traumatized me in that way that you get traumatized the first time you see a movie this intense. One of the movies that I like the most that I've seen the least in my collection, Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's breakout movie, obviously his first film, and a really good film. It is a pastiche, sure, but it's also, I don't know, it's cool. I like it. Richard III. This is another kind of obscure movie in my collection. Ian McKellen is Richard III in this retelling of the Shakespeare play that kind of sets it in a fascist England. And it's got the Shakespearean language, but it's just kind of put into a more modern setting. And Ian McKellen is great as Richard III. I've got the first, I think, 3 seasons of Rick and Morty, which is a show that I watch religiously. I watched it every week for the first few seasons. And I had some friends that worked on these first few seasons, and they were kind of telling me about the show that they were working on, that they thought was really good, and I agreed. But I have not watched it in quite some time. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which kickstarted the new Apes trilogy, and I think it's a good movie that led to a great movie in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Roadhouse, one of the cheesiest 80s movies that exists. starring Patrick Swayze. Again, the late, great Patrick Swayze and Sam Elliott, and so many quotable lines, most of which I could not say on this channel without getting this video demonetized. Road to Perdition, I believe, was Paul Newman's last film, a graphic novel adaptation from Sam Mendes starring Tom Hanks. Daniel Craig has a supporting role, kind of one of his earlier high-profile roles, and a really good movie. Another Disney animated classic, Robin Hood. It's not up there like in my top 10, but I think it's still entertaining enough for me to get it on Blu-ray. And then Robin Hood Men in Tights from Mel Brooks, also entertaining. Again, is it a top 5 Mel Brooks movie? Maybe not, but it's still a lot of fun. RoboCop. This is the Arrow Big Fancy Edition, and I shelled out the money for it because, and I've said it before, I think that RoboCop is one of the few perfect movies in existence. It is exactly what it intends to be. The story structure, the character arc, etc. Everything is in line, and I love it very much. And so it's one of the few movies that I actually do shell out for the big collector's editions for, and I'm happy to do so because I love it. One of the best movies of the 1980s. One of the best action movies of the 1990s, The Rock. You see the laser disc is peeking over my shoulder in most videos here. Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery and Ed Harris all perfectly playing the roles that they're cast for. A ridiculous movie, but also a good one. The Rocketeer, I love this movie starring Bill Campbell. Disney put this out as part of their live action in the early 90s, their live action string of movies, and I think it's a lot of fun. Timothy Dalton playing literally a mustache twirling villain, and Jennifer Connelly. Ooh, boy. Man, Jennifer Connelly. Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic. I still think that if Rami Malek had not won the Oscar for playing Freddie Mercury the year before, that Taron Egerton would have gotten a lot more attention for his performance as Elton John because he's great in the movie. This is the Rocky, what is it called? The Rocky Heavyweight Collection, which has all of the Rocky films, and I enjoy them all to some degree, except for Rocky V. Not a big fan, but I like all of the other Rocky movies, and I like all the Creed movies too. Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which is the sequel to Andor that we didn't know it was going to be when it was made. We thought it was just a prequel to Episode 4, and a really good Star Wars movie, one of my top Star Wars films. Romeo and Juliet, this is the Zeffirelli version from the 60s that was put out on Criterion. I like Shakespeare. I actually really like a good Shakespeare movie, and I think this is a great classical adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. To go alongside this version of Romeo and Juliet, which is not a classical adaptation. This is the Baz Luhrmann version. If you were my age in the 90s, this was a key film for you for many reasons. For me and my friends, a large part of it was Claire Danes, and because people were, shooting guns and stuff. For the girls in my class, it was because this was like Leonardo DiCaprio's golden era as we were heading into Titanic and then coming out of Titanic. So it's something for everybody, for the classical lovers and also for teenagers that thought that the stars of the movie were cute. Either way, two very different movies back to back. We have Room, which won an Academy Award for Brie Larson, and I think should have won at least a nomination for Jacob Tremblay, even though he's a very young actor in this movie. He is phenomenal in this film and has continued to put in good performances as he's gotten older. And then we have The Room, which is kind of the polar opposite. I talked about it a bit with The Disaster Artist, one of the most incompetently made movies of all time, and yet also one of the best, most perfectly bad movies of all time. Rosemary's Baby, which is a Polanski film from the 1960s starring Mia Farrow. I think one of the great horror movies of the 1960s. And again, I know anything Polanski related, the conversations are complicated, but I don't think that takes away from the effectiveness of the movie itself. The Royal Tenenbaums, this is on the Criterion Collection. This is probably my favorite Wes Anderson film, although I think I'd have to watch it and Grand Budapest back to back to make that final determination. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a holiday classic. I have some holiday things that are in my collection because I want to make sure I can watch them every year. This is an every year watch for me. It used to play on CBS, I think. Every single year it used to play on CBS. Maybe it still does. I don't know. Rudy, great underdog football story starring Sean Astin. And again, if you were a teenager in the 90s, this was a movie that you either owned or you would rent frequently from Blockbuster or whatever local video store you went to. Rush. Now this, I like Rush a lot. This version says rental. I think maybe this might have also come from the Screen Junkies set because we sourced movies from, to put on the set behind Hal for from many different places, and I think one of them were like secondhand resources that had rental movies. And so this is technically, I guess, classified for rental, but it's on my shelf because, again, the call went out, hey, if you want to grab something, now's the time. And I grabbed Rush because I like it a lot. But I guess this one technically not for sale. Luckily, I didn't buy it, nor did anyone. Well, no one I know still sold it. Someone sold it to Screen Junkies. Go talk to them. Rush Hour from 1998. This movie was huge when it came out. And I know that people still talk about the Rush Hour franchise, but like everybody loved this movie. Rushmore from Wes Anderson. It was not his first film, but this was his breakout film. And again, a great performance from Bill Murray, kind of a career starting performance for Jason Schwartzman, and a very, very good Wes Anderson film. The Sandlot. I know this is cross generations because I watched this movie with my nephew earlier this year, and he enjoyed it. And it's great for me to watch a movie that I loved when I was a kid with somebody who is a kid now who also enjoys it. That's timeless filmmaking. You're killing me, Smalls. Santa Claus the movie. What a weird, weird movie this is. When I would go to my aunt and uncle's house, I would watch this every time I visited, no matter what time of year it was. It stars David Huddleston, who played the Big Lebowski in The Big Lebowski, not Jeff Bridges, but the other one, as Santa Claus, and Dudley Moore as an elf, and John Lithgow as a capitalist, and they create candy canes that make you fly, and it can only have been whipped up in the 80s, and whatever substances the writers of this movie were using. Saving Private Ryan. If there is a competition for Steven Spielberg's best film, I'm not going to say my favorite is Jaws, but best film, I think that Saving Private Ryan would be one of the two, and was shamefully robbed by Shakespeare in Love for Best Picture. This is the Saw 7 film collection, and we've moved so far beyond 7 at this point, but this just has 7. I haven't seen half of these movies, but they were probably on sale for $12, and I said, $3 a movie? How could I say no? Say anything. I love this movie. I know that it's kind of a teen-centered comedy in the 80s, but this is another example of what I would call timeless filmmaking, because if you're not a teenager, I think you can relate to it in some way to your experience as a teenager. And yeah, it's a great film. All right, the other film that I think would be up for Steven Spielberg's best movie is Schindler's List. I think it very well may be his best movie. I rewatched it within the last couple years for the first time in a while and appreciated it even more than I did the last time that I saw it. Just, it's horrific. It is in some ways, very human, very poignant. It's masterful filmmaking. School of Rock, starring Jack Black. I saw this with my friend when we were both in college, and I don't think either one of us expected much from it, but this is a really good movie. Good job, Richard Linklater. You made a movie that didn't take 17 years. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World from Edgar Wright, expected to be a big box office hit, was not a big box office hit, but I think has endured. And if you talk about the cast, I mean, top to bottom, a stacked cast, some early Chris Evans in there. You've got, future Oscar winner Kieran Culkin. This is a little movie I saw at Sundance, and it's one of those films that is just small enough that you can find it for a good price because it wasn't massively successful when it came out. And that's sad because it's called Scrapper, and it's about a father and a daughter, and it's just a really sweet little film. If you haven't seen it, or if you have a chance to see it, if you want to take a chance on a movie you haven't seen, check out Scrapper, because I liked it a lot. And that's why I like Sundance, because they give the highlight, a spotlight to those films. So stay tuned. In January, I'm going to Sundance. I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. I'm going to be covering the whole festival, and hopefully I can find a bunch of movies like Scrapper there. Scream, the original Scream on 4K. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, one of my favorite horror franchises of all time, and I'm looking forward to the new one when it comes out. This is the Scream 5 film set, but it really only includes 3 Scream movies. It's kind of a misnomer. So you get the first Scream, Scream 2, Scream 3, and then 2 documentaries. So it really should be the Scream 3 film set plus extensive bonus features. Scream 4, which at the time was considered kind of the odd duck out in the Scream franchise, and it was not very well received, but I think has retroactively won over a lot more people. Then we have the reboot from a few years ago, Scream, which is not called Scream 5, it's just called Scream again. And then they resumed it with Scream 6, which came out a couple years ago, which I enjoyed. So they skipped numbers for one movie, and then they're kind of rebooting the storyline again. I don't know. Every horror series gets crazy as it goes on. Searching. This is a Screen Life movie starring John Cho, if you haven't seen it. I actually quite liked it. It's about a father looking for his daughter, but the whole thing plays out on his computer screen. It's one of those films, but I think it's really well done. Sometimes it can be a gimmick, and sometimes it works. And then Seven Samurai from Akira Kurosawa, one of the most influential films of all time, one of the most imitated and remade, officially or not, movies of all time. I think the length really puts a lot of people off because it's almost 4 hours. But again, a movie is as long as it needs to be. And this movie needs to be as long as it is. And it's one of the best movies ever made. All right, let's keep rolling here. The Shallows. Not a bad shark attack movie. Most of them are pretty bad. That one's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. Best Picture winner from Guillermo del Toro, The Shape of Water. I'm well on record saying that I am not happy that the narrative around this movie is it's the fish effing movie because there's so much more to it, but I've lost that battle, it would appear. Shaun of the Dead. This is the Steelbook. I own Shaun of the Dead in a few different ways. I've got an old Blu-ray. I've got an old DVD. I think there's another version that we're going to see. One of my favorite movies of all time. Probably my second favorite. Speaking of, here it is, Shaun of the Dead. I just put this next to the other Shaun. This is actually the Cornetto trilogy on 4K. So this is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End, which I just rewatched recently and still think is an underrated movie. World's End. Shawshank Redemption, Frank Darabont, Rob Reiner's company, Castle Rock, and Rob Reiner himself were very key in getting this film produced, and the most popular film of all time, if you were to believe IMDb. Shazam, the first one, I like this movie a lot, and the second one was such a disappointment, but I still enjoy this one. I think it's one of the better movies out of the DCEU. And then we have a bunch of Sherlocks. Sherlock Season 1, which was very good. Sherlock Season 2, which was also good. Sherlock Season 3, and then as would follow Season 3, there would be Sherlock Season 4. I don't know if I've ever even watched Sherlock Season 4. I've not heard good things. And then we have the period movie Sherlock the Abominable Bride, which I also haven't watched, but the box set was on sale for cheap. Another great Godzilla movie, Shin Godzilla. One of the better modern Godzilla films. If you have not seen it, it's for me, it's a top 5 Godzilla movie. I love that movie. The Shining, Stanley Kubrick, classic horror film starring Jack Nicholson. Not a great adaptation of the book, but a good movie in its own right. And then this is the miniseries, the ABC miniseries that aired in, I want to say 1997. It's a better adaptation of the book, but it has the limitations of being a TV movie. I still have my dream project one day of somebody making a great film adaptation of the Stephen King book. Or even a limited series like HBO Max. HBO Max or somebody. Make The Shining. Like 6-episode limited series. Oh, it'd be great. Shoot 'Em Up, which is a ridiculous action movie from the early 2000s starring Clive Owen. Again, I think this is one that is largely forgotten by people, but it is nuts. It is a nutty movie. Sicario, great movie. I think a lot of people don't think of it when they are thinking of Denis Villeneuve's filmography because it is different from a lot of his other films, especially his more recent films, but it's still a great movie. Sideways, Alexander Payne, another criminal overlooking of Paul Giamatti and his performance in the film, famously hurt Merlot sales in real life. Signs from M. Night Shyamalan, which scared the crap out of me when it first came out, and I went home to an empty house and was thinking about aliens watching me from my backyard. Yes, the water thing is kind of silly, but there's some very, very effective moments in that movie. And then we have The Silence of the Lambs, the Criterion Edition, one of the great movies of the early 1990s, one of the other movies that won the Big Five Oscars, one of the very few movies, picture, screenplay, actor, actress, director. The Simpsons movie. I think I read somewhere because we have another Simpsons movie coming out. It will have been longer between the first Simpsons movie and the second Simpsons movie than it was between the premiere of the TV show and the first film, which is crazy. I don't know if a second Simpsons movie is going to hit quite like this one. The Simpsons for me, I've tried to watch some of the modern stuff. It's just not the same. I know that some people say that that's overblown. It's not the same to me. Sin City, Robert Rodriguez, adaptation of the Frank Miller series of graphic novels, and a pretty good movie in its own right. I like that movie a lot. Sing Street, I love this movie. Alicia Malone, I believe, way back in the Screen Junkies days, it has to be credited for putting this on my radar and everyone else's radar, talking it up. And then we saw it and loved it. And I think we even interviewed one of the actors in the movie virtually before that was a thing that everybody did. Just a really great, sweet coming of age film and some fantastic music to boot. Singing in the Rain, one of the great classic Hollywood musicals and one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion. The dancing and the singing, Gene Kelly, Donald O'Connor, Debbie Reynolds, just top notch. Sinners, one of the more recent movies in my collection. This was a Black Friday pickup, I believe, and a movie that I really enjoyed. I'm hoping to give it another look, another watch before I make my best of list by the end of the year, because I'm pretty sure it's on my list, but I don't know exactly where. I just had the one watch when it was in theaters, and I'd like to give it another one. The Sixth Sense, of course, M. Night Shyamalan's big breakout film, part of that class of 1999. One of the most famous twist endings of all time, and it shocked the hell out of me and my friends. Snakes on a Plane, ridiculous movie starring Samuel L. Jackson. One of the movies that I think the build-up and the hype to it was superior to the actual movie itself, but still a pretty crazy movie in its own right. Snatch, another Guy Ritchie film, and I hope I'm not demonetized just for saying the name of this movie. And again, kind of solidified his particular brand of filmmaking at that time, and a great supporting performance from Brad Pitt. You can't understand a word that he says in that movie. The Social Network, one of the best movies of the 21st century, one of the most important movies of the 21st century, one of the most relevant movies of the 21st century, and I guess we're getting a sequel, not really a sequel though, because it's a whole new cast, but a follow-up to The Social Network in 2026, supposedly. Some Like It Hot, one of the best comedies ever made. Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. Marilyn Monroe, directed by Billy Wilder, often on the list, maybe as the best comedy ever made. Sorry to Bother You, which is a great film from Boots Riley. Absolutely bananas. But again, sometimes abstract sorts of filmmaking aren't on my frequency. This one was on my frequency, and I hope that people still remember it. The Sound of Music, one of the most successful movies of all time. I've owned it for quite some time because I bought it on sale, and I've been saying this for a very long time. Still haven't watched it. Still haven't seen it. I don't know why. I should. Still haven't. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, another movie from 1999, and I think one of the most socially in tune movies of that time. I expected nothing from this film, and because the TV show hadn't quite made the turn that it does now into a lot of the social stuff, and this was such an incisive commentary, I thought, of just this sort of outrage among parents and violence and all that stuff at the time, and a great musical to boot. Again, in its own right, some great songs. Spaceballs, we're getting a second one this year in 2026, I believe, or maybe 2027. This has never been as big or as high up on the list of Mel Brooks movies as it is for a lot of people, but I have to acknowledge that it's still funny and a great parody of Star Wars. Spartacus, great film from Stanley Kubrick, one of the great sword and sandal epics of all time, starring Kirk Douglas. Another long movie that doesn't feel long if you actually sit down and watch it, because it's as long as it needs to be. Spectre, one of the bigger disappointments in the James Bond series for me, because it came off of Skyfall, which was so good. Daniel Craig had that's kind of how his series went. A great movie, then a not so great movie, then a great movie, then a not so great movie. But I'm a completionist or a completist, whatever you want to call it. I've been talking for so long, I don't even know. So I have all of the James Bond movies. Speed, one of the best movies of the 1990s in the action genre. Helped bring back Keanu Reeves' career, helped launch Sandra Bullock's career. Dennis Hopper, great villain. I hate this art that's on this cover. Let's see. Nope. They also used it on the DVD cover. They have great movie posters. Graphic designers sit down and come up with the perfect image to sell a movie. It goes through all kinds of testing, and they become iconic in their own rights, and it's hanging up on people's walls. And then you make these stupid Blu-ray and 4K covers and don't use the poster that's already been tested for marketing. I don't understand it. Spider-Man trilogy, all the Sam Raimi films, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3. The first two are great. The third one, I feel like the third one it's sort of a prequel thing going on where there's been some kind of a revisionist. Actually, it's not so bad. Isn't it, though? The first 30 minutes is really good, and then it just goes off the rails. Spider-Man Homecoming, first Tom Holland film, and the introduction of Spider-Man in his own movie in the MCU. Spider-Man Far From Home, which I think was a solid sequel that I enjoyed. And then my favorite of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, Spider-Man No Way Home. I hate that box art. It's terrible. Just awful. But I like the movie. Split, the stealth Unbreakable sequel that nobody knew M. Night Shyamalan was making, and a powerhouse performance from James McAvoy. Should have gotten Academy recognition, but they don't recognize movies like that. Spotlight, the Best Picture winner, and again, when we talked about All the President's Men, what was that, like 7 hours ago? I love a good journalism procedural type film, and this was a really good one about uncovering abuses inside of the Catholic Church. A great cast, a great movie. Spy, a really funny Melissa McCarthy movie directed by Paul Feig. Jason Statham in a good comedic role as well. It's been a while since I saw this one, but I remember liking it very much. Here we go again. I think this might be the last one. Rest in peace, Rob Reiner, another Stone Cold classic, Stand By Me. One of the great coming-of-age movies of all time and part of that phenomenal run he had in the 80s going into the 90s. What a legacy he left behind. This is the Star Trek run. So we've got, first of all, Star Trek the original series on Blu-ray. Again, this is a pre-streaming era where if you wanted to own all of the series, you just had to buy them on physical media. Then we have the Star Trek 6 movie collection on 4K. So this is the motion picture through Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. So all of the Captain Kirk and crew movies. Then we have Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, the director's cut, which I think is pretty good. They cut out some stuff that I think make it a better movie. I don't mind this one. Usually if I have to choose one or the other, I'll choose the director's cut. Then we've got Star Trek The Next Generation, which is my personal favorite Star Trek series. So we've got Star Trek The Next Generation Season 1. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 2, which is a slight improvement on Season 1. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, which I think is where they really start cooking. That's when the show begins to hit its stride. And then we're into the golden era. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 5. Star Trek The Next Generation Season 6. And then Star Trek The Next Generation Season 7, this is a very up and down season. I really think that maybe they should have quit at 6 and then maybe take some extra time to do the movie, but they stayed and did 7 seasons. There are still some good episodes in the 7th season, but it's more up and down than the other ones. And what I love about these Blu-rays is they went back, they remastered the whole show and the effects, and it's all in HD, and it looks fantastic. And I'm sure these are the versions that they're streaming, but again, at that time, there were no streaming services, so you just had to buy everything. Then I have on Blu-ray, I've had forever, the Star Trek The Next Generation movie collection. So this is Generations, First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. Kind of a mixed bag there, but one of the best of all time was Star Trek First Contact. This is Star Trek 09, which I quite enjoyed, the J.J. Abrams reboot movie. I thought it did a great job with the new cast, which they would then squander in Star Trek Into Darkness by trying to poorly remake Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. And then they would generate a mediocre movie in Star Trek Beyond, which is not bad, but not great either. And then they wouldn't do anything else with that cast. So, good job, Paramount. Doing a bang-up job with Star Trek. Let's get into the Star Wars segment here. So we have Star Wars The Complete Saga, which was put out in, I want to say like sometime around 2012. No longer The Complete Saga. So if you buy this hoping to get the prequels and the sequel trilogy, you're only going to get the first 6 Star Wars movies. Then they were bought by Disney. So I do have the sequel trilogy. I've got Star Wars The Force Awakens. Did I say first? The Force Awakens, which I loved and was really hoping would turn into something. Then we have the controversial Star Wars The Last Jedi. I'm loath to even say the name, which kind of undid everything Force Awakens did, which I think actually would have been okay had this one, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, not then retroactively undone everything that The Last Jedi undid, and then the whole sequel trilogy was a mess. The Star Wars sequel trilogy is one of the biggest unforced errors in pop culture, modern pop culture, maybe in pop culture history. Starship Troopers on 4K. Not really understood that well when it came out. It was not seen for the social and cultural and political satire that it was, but it is now appreciated as such. Good job, Paul Verhoeven. Step Brothers, one of the most ridiculous comedies of the 21st century. John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell are a great comedic duo, and this is a hilarious movie. The Sting, another Paul Newman, Robert Redford classic and a Best Picture winner. They would team up a few times, and this is a great movie. And Robert Shaw, one of his great non-Jaws roles. This is another one, the 1980s. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot, maybe the early 90s. I don't know if anybody else remembers this. Sylvester Stallone and Estelle Getty. It's another cop movie. This is in the same vein as Cuffs and King Ralph. in that I bought them because they were movies I watched when I was a kid, and yet I don't think I've rewatched them since I bought them. There's just something comforting about having them on the shelf. It's like part of the tapestry of my life. Straight Outta Compton, a great music biopic, a big surprise hit in the late summer of, I want to say 2015, and a movie that I don't know if many people expected it to do as well as it did or to be as good as it was, but it was great. This was my favorite movie of last year, 2024, The Substance, starring Demi Moore. I was rooting for her to win Best Actress. I didn't mind that Mikey Madison won, but I was rooting for Demi Moore, and like I said, this was my favorite movie of that year. Oftentimes, this is the kind of movie that'll leave me cold, but I was very engaged with it. I have Suicide Squad. Again, I think because I was just kind of collecting cheap DC movies, so I could say that I had them. So I have the Suicide Squad extended cut. As I recall, it doesn't really do anything to help it. And then I have The Suicide Squad from James Gunn, which I liked a lot more than Suicide Squad, but which did not do well at the box office. It didn't help that HBO Max put it out on streaming the same day. This is a Steven Spielberg movie that I didn't see until a couple years ago, The Sugarland Express. It was his first theatrical film, and it's actually very good. It's Goldie Hawn and William Atherton from Die Hard, and they're on the road running from the cops. It's based on a true story, and it's actually a really good film. I'm sad that I did not see it as early as I should have. Sunset Boulevard, one of my favorite movies of all time, one of the best movies ever made, directed by Billy Wilder. Again, a movie that put so many lines into the pop culture echelon of great lines, one of the best screenplays ever written, and a great movie about movies. The Super Mario Brothers movie, I liked this movie. Again, I grew up playing Nintendo and I grew up playing Mario Kart, and they knew exactly what kind of movie they should make, and this hits all the nostalgia buttons, so we'll see what Super Mario Galaxy does this upcoming year. Superbad, a big seminal comedy of the early 2000s, helped to introduce Jonah Hill to the world. And I think this is still, as of the last time I saw it, it's still a funny one. It gave us McLovin. If nothing else, it did that. A collection of Superman films, Superman the movie from 1978, Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, and Superman Returns, which is the Brandon Routh film. Then another collection, which is Superman the movie, then the theatrical cut of Superman 2, and Superman 3 with Richard Pryor, which is not a very good Superman movie. Then this one, which is Superman 4 and Superman Returns. So I own Superman Returns twice, and I own Superman the movie twice, because that's how they get you. They don't ever put the same movies together, and that's how they get you. Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, starring Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. I was not familiar with the stage musical when I saw the movie, and I quite enjoy the movie, and I wish that I could see... I would love to see a good staging of the musical on Broadway or elsewhere. Swingers, if you could bottle up the 90s and swing dancing and everything else, all those things that experienced a brief resurgence, it would all be in this movie, directed by Doug Liman. The movie that kind of gave us Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau. Probably one of the most dated 90s movies, but also, I think, still a funny movie. It's just so of its time. All right, we're getting into the home stretch now. I took a break and watched the end of the New England-Baltimore game, by the way. You didn't even know. Just went from one group of movies to the other. Let's keep going. We're getting to the end of the S's. Swiss Army Man, Justice for Paul Dano. I don't care what Quentin Tarantino says. I think he's a really good actor, and I think he's really good in this movie. And by the way, Daniel Radcliffe shocked the hell out of some people. I remember hearing about this movie coming out of Sundance, that people walked out of it. I get it. I like it. Good movie from the Daniels. Another Disney animated classic, The Sword and the Stone, a fixture when I was growing up. And really trippy for a Disney animated film. You could tell that was made in that 60s, 70s era. What a great recent horror film from the Philippines, Talk to Me. And I really like to Bring Her Back as well. That's one I'm waiting to go on sale. But this was a really, really strong horror movie that creepy. It creeped me out. I've got that hand somewhere. I've got a replica of that hand somewhere. Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby, NASCAR, Will Ferrell. Nothing better. John C. Reilly, also great in that movie. Tar, my favorite movie from a few years ago. Great performance from Cate Blanchett. One of the movies that I've seen clips circulated the most out of context. Everybody's got their own take on that movie. My take is that it's a really, really good movie. Taxi Driver, one of Martin Scorsese's best. You Talking to Me, still a popular thing. Robert De Niro, iconic performance in this film. Jodie Foster, great performance. One of the all-around great films, and just a grimy 70s film, too. Team America World Police, more brilliant comedy in puppet form from the South Park dudes. Another great musical as well. Not quite as much of a musical as South Park was, but still a really funny movie. Teen Wolf, Michael J. Fox, he's a werewolf. That's all you really need to know. Part of that, I think that came out the same year as Back to the Future. He had a big 1985. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is a 3-pack. You get the original movie, 1990 live-action movie. You get Secret of the Ooze, and you get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3. I like the first two. The third one, not so much. The Turtles look cheap in the third one. They really cut the budget on that. Oh. The Ten Commandments, classic Charlton Heston epic, biblical epic. They used to run it on ABC at Easter. They may still. So I've probably seen it on TV more than I've seen it on Blu-ray. Tenet from Christopher Nolan. A bit of a disappointment for me, but again, Nolan movies are so epic, his modern films, that it's almost like you have to own them because the filmmaking aspect of it is so impressive. I want to have that on my shelf, even if I don't necessarily love the movie. The Terminator, breakout role for Arnold Schwarzenegger, breakout film for James Cameron. I'll be back, all that stuff. Terminator 2 Judgment Day, I have it on 4K. Now, the 4K enthusiasts that I've seen online, all the forums, they talk endlessly about how terrible the transfer on this film is. I guess I just don't have the eye for it because it looks okay to me. But I don't notice a lot of the things that the physical media, the real enthusiasts notice. You know, I'm a fan. I love physical media, but there's people that look at film grain and all that stuff, and apparently this is a terrible transfer, but not to my eyes, my untrained eye. Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, not a great movie, but I loved the end of this movie. I wish this had been the last Terminator movie because it would have been a perfect ending for the Terminator franchise. And as far as my collection, it is, because I don't have any of the other Terminator films. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, a great low-budget indie horror success story, and I think still a really effective film. That Thing You Do, one of my favorite movies of all time. I think that this one has sustained a cult following over the years. I loved it. My uncle loved it as well. We talked about this movie all the time, so it's got some of that memory associated with it as for me. And just a fun movie, just fun. There Will Be Blood in discussion a lot with the whole Tarantino thing. Again, justice for Paul Dano. I think that he's good in this movie. Daniel Day-Lewis, of course, brilliant in this movie, and this is one of the best movies of the 21st century. Paul Thomas Anderson, as much as I liked One Battle After Another and as much as I've loved some of his other films, There Will Be Blood is the one that I think is his best. There's Something About Mary, iconic 90s comedy, and I love the fact that they somehow were able to get a picture of Cameron Diaz with, for lack of a better word, spooge in her hair as the main marketing material. Think about how crazy that is. That image was everywhere, and then you realize what it is. I'm like, wow, they got away with that. They Live, a great John Carpenter movie, a great sort of commentary on the 80s and capitalism and you name it, and also a movie where Roddy Piper has an endless fight with Keith David in an alley. You get both of those things. Another John Carpenter movie, one of his best, The Thing. I love this movie. This is also one of those annual watches or close to it around Halloween or really any time of the year. It's a great winter movie too. It'd be a great movie for a January, February watch when it's really cold outside. The Third Man, one of the great film noirs, starring Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles. The use of light and dark in that movie, some of the most famous shots ever. Carol Reed did a great job with that film. Oh no, we have another Rob Reiner film here. His first movie, how could I forget about it? This is Spinal Tap, one of the greatest comedies of all time. Helped to invent the mockumentary genre. There were other mockumentaries before it, but I would say the modern iteration, and Christopher Guest would kind of run with what Rob Reiner did in this movie to make his own films. But this is Spinal Tap is one of the greatest comedies of all time. This Is the End, post-apocalyptic comedy. That's a who's who of comedic actors as you get into the 2010s. Everybody is in that movie. And as I recall, it's funny. It's been a bit since I saw it. Another little MCU run here. We've got the first Thor film, starring, of course, Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston from Kenneth Branagh. We have Thor: The Dark World, which is not a great movie, but not as bad as a lot of people think that it is, or I don't agree. We have Thor: Ragnarok from Taika Waititi. That is also a really entertaining movie. Bit of a tonal shift, and I don't own Thor: Love and Thunder, and there are many good reasons for that. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. picked up a couple of different Oscars, one for Frances McDormand, one for Sam Rockwell, and another really well-written film from Martin McDonagh, who has made a few of the movies In Bruges and Banshees of Inisherin that have been on this list. This I've had forever. This is the Tim Burton collection, so it's got Batman, Batman Returns, Beetlejuice, Mars Attacks, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and Corpse Bride in there. Of course, Batman and Batman Returns I own elsewhere. Pee-wee's Big Adventure has a Criterion disc, I think, that just came out that I'm excited to get eventually, probably the next 50% off sale because I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Titanic, for a while, the biggest movie of all time until James Cameron overtook James Cameron, and a movie that I like a lot. I've seen it within the last year or two, and I still enjoy it. This is a 3D Blu-ray, so if anyone still had a 3D TV, we could watch it in 3D. Tokyo Story. This movie I watched for the first time this year, and what an interesting film. I mean, this is another one. It's, about 2.5 hours long-ish, and it's a very simple movie about simple people, meaning they live a very simple life, and yet it just goes to show you that you can make a movie about anything if you know how to use the visual language of cinema and craft characters that people care about, because I thought it was a great one. Ozu is acclaimed for this movie for a reason. Tombstone, one of my favorite Westerns of all time, if not my favorite Western of all time. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. Doc Holliday, one of the best characters, not even just in a Western, in any movie. I get it. It's pulpy at times. It's corny at times, but I think it's also really good. Bill Paxton, Sam Elliott, Kurt Russell. The cast in that movie is endless. Tommy Boy, Chris Farley, and David Spade. Some people like Black Sheep. I'm not a fan of Black Sheep, but I am a big fan of Tommy Boy, and still a movie that makes me laugh because it's just so stupid. Doesn't matter how many times I've seen it. Tootsie, starring Dustin Hoffman, had one of those legendary box office runs that we talk about on charts all the time. Really funny comedy about him pretending to be a woman to get an acting role on a soap opera. I had somebody in my family that was named Tootsie, and I always thought that this movie was named after her when I was a kid because I was dumb. Top Gun Maverick and Top Gun together in a 4K collection. This was just great timing. I think I had Top Gun on Blu-ray, but I decided to upgrade and get both movies together. Great fighter pilot movies. Top Secret. Again, Val Kilmer in a great comedic role. This is from the same people that brought you Airplane. Airplane is the one that people talk about. I have long argued that Top Secret is as funny as Airplane. Maybe slightly less funny, but at least almost as funny as Airplane, and yet not nearly as acclaimed. Total Recall, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, early 1990s, part of a legendary run for him. Another Paul Verhoeven movie, and a really kind of nutty, Quado-filled early 90s action film. The Towering Inferno. Okay, here's another 70s disaster movie that I have. I didn't like it as much, and I don't like it as much as The Poseidon Adventure, but it's got one of those like crazy 70s ensemble casts. I mean, so we got Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, Fred Astaire, Susan Blakely, Richard Chamberlain, O.J. Simpson, Robert Vaughn, and Robert Wagner, and Jennifer Jones. So I just like these big cast disaster movies, not quite as much as Poseidon Adventure. Little Pixar run here. We got the first Toy Story movie. Now it looks so simple and basic, but when it came out, this was a mind-blowing movie that they could make an entire movie out of computer animation. And then you got Tom Hanks and Tim Allen doing great voice work. Toy Story 2, one of the great animated sequels of all time, and a big upgrade as far as the look of the movie. Pixar was really starting to cook with that one. Toy Story 3, which everybody thought for a while was going to be the end of the series and had a perfect end for the series. And I do also have Toy Story 4, which I enjoyed. I don't hate this movie. I think it invented a reason enough for it to exist. But I am still skeptical of Toy Story 5 because it's like, how many times can you end this story? You've given the characters multiple endings now. Traffic by Steven Soderbergh. Nominated for a bunch of Oscars. I think it should have won more. Benicio del Toro won for this movie. Interlocking stories about the drug trade in the 2000s. I think this movie came out in the year 2000. And this is one that I owe a watch because I remember liking it. An incredible cast in that movie. Training Day got Denzel Washington his Academy Award for Best Actor. He already had one for Best Supporting Actor. And just a great drama with Ethan Hawke, who does a great job in the supporting role. The Transformers, the movie. I don't know why. This must have been another sale because I'm not a massive fan of this movie. I think maybe I just bought it to make Joe Starr proud of me because he loves this movie. Me not so much, but I own it, so it's there. It's now the only Transformers movie on the shelf as well. I did a little bit of divesting of films. Triangle of Sadness, the Criterion Collection. This is a nutty, crazy movie. If you don't like vomit, then don't watch this movie. But again, social satire, absurdity, stuff like that. I really, really like that, and it was nominated for several Oscars. Tron, I own because it just feels like you should own a little piece of history, and that it does have its place in film history. It's not an amazing movie, but it was probably $5, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll pick up Tron for $5. Tropic Thunder, like Blazing Saddles, one of those movies that people say you couldn't make anymore, and then some people say this movie shouldn't have been made, and both groups are ignoring the fact that, once again, the joke is on the person who is making all of the what some people would deem offensive racial gestures or offensive racial statements, which would be Robert Downey Jr. The joke is on his character. That's why it works. That's why this movie, I think, is still funny, and I don't go, ooh, that hasn't aged well. It's because Robert Downey Jr. is playing an idiot who would do something that's stupid and is portrayed that way throughout the film. He's a dummy. He's an out-of-touch actor. That's why it works. True Lies. I haven't yet had a chance to watch this one. This was one of my... I was looking for this. This wasn't even available in HD, even on streaming, for years and years and years. It was only available in standard definition. I had an old Snapcase DVD of it, and then they put it out on 4K. I haven't had a chance to watch it on 4K yet, but again, like the other James Cameron movies, I'm told by the people who apparently know these things that it's a terrible transfer. I don't know. Jim Carrey, The Truman Show, the first movie before Man on the Moon that I think he should have been nominated for an Academy Award for his big dramatic turn and a really good movie. And again, I think it's become more relevant in the age of the internet and everybody broadcasting themselves all the time. And then Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me. This was the last Criterion Flash sale I bought stuff for, and I think it was just because I want to be more into David Lynch than I am, and so I decided to kind of buy this film almost as like a tribute. It's like, you know what, I'll get another Lynch movie because I do respect David Lynch, even if his movies weren't always for me. I respect him as a filmmaker enormously. Twister, 90s disaster movie, Helen Hunt, Bill Paxton, flying cows, all kinds of things, smashing through the drive-thru, showing The Shining. Part of that early effects revolution and a big movie in my teens. Twisters, not as good, but I still enjoyed it. This movie it was better than I thought it was going to be, and it still had some big old tornadoes in it, so that's half the battle right there. The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which is a French musical and is something that, again, Wes Anderson, Damien Chazelle, a lot of modern filmmakers owe a lot and openly have said that they owe a lot to this musical. It was one that kind of took me a second to get into the first time that I saw it, but once I got into it, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I dig this. I like this. This is pretty good. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. The director and writer behind this movie are also behind Anaconda, the new version of Anaconda, with Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage and Pedro Pascal playing a fan of Nicolas Cage. A great meta movie that I really liked. Uncut Gems from the Safdie brothers starring Adam Sandler. This is a Criterion Collection disc. I love that they are putting out recent movies as well as older titles, and this is a top-notch stress watch. You're going to be stressed out watching this movie, but you're also going to be impressed because it's a great movie. Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood, Best Picture winner, Best Director. Gene Hackman won an Academy Award for this movie, and one of the great, you could say it kind of kicked off the modern Western trend. And rightfully so, kind of an examination of the genre. This is a collection of Universal classic monster movies. Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Wolfman, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Mummy, all those people that we never saw in the Dark Universe because the Dark Universe never existed. I like a lot of these movies. I think they're fun. I'll usually watch at least one around Halloween. The Untouchables. I know that Sean Connery won an Oscar for the film, but I still think it's an underrated movie. I think this is a great mob movie, a great crime movie. De Niro, Kevin Costner, the whole cast are really, really good in this movie as well. This is another one that I can put on just about any time and watch. Upgrade, which is very similar to Venom and stars an actor who looks very similar to Tom Hardy. And I would argue definitely does Venom better than any of the Venom sequels did, and maybe does Venom better than the first Venom movie did. Us, the second film from Jordan Peele. Again, this is, I guess, a little polarizing when it came out, but it's a movie that I enjoy. I know the practicalities don't necessarily work, but thematically, I think it works. The Usual Suspects, breakout movie for, Kevin Spacey won an Oscar, breakout movie for Bryan Singer. So obviously the conversation around this is a lot more complicated than it was before, but that does not take away from the ensemble, and it doesn't take away from Christopher McQuarrie and his script and a lot of the things that are great about this movie. Utama. This is a tiny, tiny movie that came, again, I saw it out of the Sundance Film Festival, and international cinema often goes below the radar, but I think this is a beautiful story about a sort of drought-ravaged family land and fighting modernization, and when you shouldn't fight modernization. It's a family story, and it's one of those that I was able to get for fairly cheap because I guess there wasn't a whole lot of demand for it, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. V for Vendetta. We're coming up on, I think, the 20th anniversary of this movie, believe it or not. And I'm sure there will be a lot of Guy Fawkes celebrations in November, as there are for our friends across the pond every year. This disc has V for Vendetta as well as Watchmen and Constantine, and I'm pretty sure I picked this up, again, for Schmodown purposes because there were... Oh, no. This disc has V for Vendetta as well as Watchmen and Constantine. It's a combo pack, and I'm pretty sure that I picked it up for Schmodown purposes, again, for studying. All those movies, I think, have their own advantages. Varsity Blues, that one still has a price tag on it. I bought that in a secondhand store. I don't want your life. I certainly hope that James Van Der Beek is recovering or continues to recover. It looks like he's going through a pretty tough cancer battle right now. This movie came out the month that I turned 16, so when I think about this movie, I think about riding around in my car, listening to the soundtrack, trying to sneak into this movie, which I eventually successfully did. So very tied to my teenage years. Venom, the first movie, famously, I liked it when a lot of people did not like it, and people still, not so much anymore, but for 2 or 3 years afterwards, whenever anybody wanted to discount one of my opinions, they'd say, what does that guy know? He liked Venom. Venom Let There Be Carnage, which I also somewhat enjoyed. It wasn't terrible. It was what it was. It could have been better, could have been worse, but enough for me to buy it on sale. Vice from Adam McKay, a look at Dick Cheney, and a great performance by Christian Bale. This movie could have gone very wrong, and I think that Christian Bale really holds it all together. Violent Night, one of my new holiday classics. I've watched it the last, I forget what year it came out, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, but I think I've watched it every year since then because I just enjoy a off the beaten track Christmas movie that, maybe watch it once the family's gone to bed or once the kids have gone home because it's like a nice adult Christmas movie. Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash biopic from James Mangold, starring Joaquin Phoenix, who was great. Reese Witherspoon won an Academy Award for that movie. I do kind of wish they'd use Johnny Cash's voice. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix does well singing, but it's not Johnny Cash. War for the Planet of the Apes, the final movie in the new Apes trilogy, and I think one of the best modern film trilogies, top to bottom. War of the Worlds from Steven Spielberg, starring Tom Cruise. I think that this movie, it's a really solid 2/3 of a movie. The end of it maybe doesn't hold up as well, but the tripods and the sound design and the visual effects on that, the way they just dust people, that's kind of a horrifyingly realized for the concept. Warm Bodies, I didn't see in theaters, and I think it's an okay movie. The only reason that I got it is because in the special features, there is a video that I edited that we did with Rob Corddry for Screen Junkies. So if you get this Warm Bodies Blu-ray, I don't know if you still can, you will find in the special features Hal Rudnick talking to Rob Corddry, and they even kept the end card telling people to click on different videos intact on the Blu-ray. So I just got that because I have work that I edited on a Blu-ray, which is pretty cool. Warrior, a great movie about brothers starring Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy. Maybe the definitive MMA film, even with the Smashing Machine now in existence, and a really strong movie from Gavin O'Connor. Waterworld, Kevin Costner, one of the biggest box office disasters of all time. Why do I own this? Again, I'm pretty sure this was like a 5 for 20 or 5 for 30 deal where you could get a bunch of Universal movies, and it's like, well, why not have Waterworld? Again, it has some historical significance. Wayne's World, one of the few SNL movies that's actually funny. I would say funnier than the sketch that birthed it, largely because, again, it has that kind of absurdist sensibility. So I like Wayne's World a lot, and I like the sequel, Wayne's World 2. It's funny in a different way. It's more of a parody movie in many ways than the first movie, but still a lot of fun. Weird, the Al Yankovic story. I loved this. I thought this was a really fun fake biopic of Weird Al. I think it was brilliant to have Daniel Radcliffe come in. Obviously this is a pretty low budget film, but that kind of fits for Weird Al, and I think it's the perfect match for like Weird Al the person and Weird Al the persona, if you will. This is the second version of Weird. I think this was an international version on 4K that one of my friends sent from Australia. I believe that's where this comes from. So I have two different versions of Weird. West Side Story, the original musical, one of the best musicals ever made. Of course, a Best Picture winner, won several Oscars, acting and technical awards, etc. And like I said, I'm a sucker for musicals, so I'm a big fan of West Side Story. I'm also a sucker for Steven Spielberg, who did his own version of West Side Story, which I think stands with the original. I really do. It's not a shot-for-shot repetition, and I love seeing Steven Spielberg's talent as a filmmaker put into making a classic Hollywood musical. I think this is an outstanding film, even though nobody went to see it. I still like it. Wet Hot American Summer, again, one of the great absurd comedies of the early 20th century, I believe. It was in the early 2000s when this movie came out. And it has so many non sequiturs and weird things and sound effects jokes, which makes me laugh, and a great cast, and just purely absurd. But I like absurd. What We Do in the Shadows, great vampire mockumentary comedy from Taika Waititi and Jermaine Clement. I'm very much on the wavelength with them as far as humor goes. I have to see the show. I haven't seen the show yet. What's Up, Doc? This was actually sent to me by one of my patrons over on Patreon who said I should check it out a shamelessly long time ago, and I have yet to do it. So that goes on the list. Got to watch it. All right, we're almost at the end of the Blu-rays and 4Ks, and then I've got a few DVDs and some box sets, and then we're done. This video is going to be at least over 3 hours long. This is insane. I bit off way more than I could chew. One last Rob Reiner. How could I forget When Harry Met Sally? A great romantic comedy. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, fantastic performances. And again, the rom-com genre for Rob Reiner, and he made a movie that helped define that genre as well. Whiplash, I mentioned earlier. If I were going to do it again, I might name this my favorite movie of 2014 over Boyhood, although they're both great, and a great movie about obsession and being an artist and what it takes and what it should take and what it does take. Who Framed Roger Rabbit, one of the most technically proficient and incredible movies ever made, the hybrid of live action and animation, which you had to do by hand, the things they invented and able to do this movie in order to do it. Robert Zemeckis, brilliant director and a great movie. Wicked. I've got Wicked. I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll get Wicked Part 2. Or Wicked for Good, but I liked Wicked. The Wild Robot also came out last year. I think that was my favorite. I have to go back, but I think that was my favorite animated movie of last year. I don't begrudge Flo for winning the Academy Award, but I really like The Wild Robot. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, one of the great all-time performances by Gene Wilder. And I don't just mean of his, I mean like performances in general. What a crazy, wonderful movie that is. Wind River, another Taylor Sheridan movie. I think he wrote and directed this one, again, before he was tied up with Paramount Plus and making a series that's on every single week out of the year. And another great movie starring Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. The Wizard, basically a paid commercial for Nintendo. Super Mario Bros. 3, the Power Glove, you name it, and I wanted all of it. Fred Savage is a kid who's taken his brother to a Nintendo tournament in California, Universal Studios. So many things that this movie was just blatantly promoting, but as a child, I didn't understand that. It just looked like there were so many cool things I needed that were in that movie. The Wizard of Oz, 1939, one of the greatest movies ever made. I will never go see it at the Sphere because I'm not interested in seeing the movie that I like surrounded with a bunch of AI junk, but I am very much interested in watching the movie on 4K and experiencing it the way that it should be seen. I don't need David Zaslav in the background in Munchkinland. Not what I need. The Wolf of Wall Street, another great film from Martin Scorsese. Again, not one of his best, but one of the ones that I could watch anytime. And speaking of Rob Reiner, fantastic in this, alongside Leonardo DiCaprio and Jonah Hill and John Bernthal and pretty much everybody who's in the movie. Wonder Woman, the first movie, great movie. I think, again, one of the best of the DCEU. Why I own Wonder Woman 1984, I can't tell you. There must have been a real sale on substandard Warner Brothers films because I own it, but I cannot imagine that I paid more than $5 for this. And I can't explain why I own that movie. World War Z, which I thought was okay. I mean, for as much as they didn't know what they were doing making the movie and going back and reshooting it, I think it kind of turned out the best case scenario. As I mentioned, I own 2/3 of the X trilogy. I don't have Maxine, but I do have X and I do have Pearl, and I like both of those movies, and this is a great throwback to that Texas Chainsaw type 70s movie. X-Men, the first movie that was released in the year 2000, the movie that brought us Hugh Jackman. And again, as a Marvel fan, I was expecting the worst and actually was pleasantly surprised, and more surprised with X2, X-Men United, which was a much better movie than X-Men, which wasn't already, which didn't start out bad. And then we got worse with X-Men The Last Stand, which is a terrible X-Men movie coming off of a great one. I don't know how that works. X-Men First Class, which I thought was a pretty good reboot, if you want to call it that. You know, a flashback or whatever kind of film that spawned, much like the first X-Men movie, it spawned a better movie in X-Men Days of Future Past after that, which I enjoyed and thought was an improvement on First Class, although I like First Class a lot. I think it's better than the first X-Men movie. And then there's the X-Men Days of Future Past Rogue cut, which I think is an interesting version of the movie. I'm fine with the theatrical cut, but this is also, I kind of wish that they'd committed to the direction that the Rogue cut takes and just finished it that way. Why do I own this? X-Men Apocalypse. My obsessive need to complete sets must be stopped. Again, I must have bought this like 5 years after it came out when it was $5. There's no reason for me to have X-Men Apocalypse on my shelf. None whatsoever. Yojimbo, again, from Kurosawa, one of the most influential movies of all time, and one that I saw a very long time. I mean, I'm talking college long. It's almost as if I had not seen it, and I need to rewatch it. Young Frankenstein, it's tied for me, I think, with Blazing Saddles for Mel Brooks' best comedy, and they came out the same year, which is insane. Another great performance from Gene Wilder and Madeline Kahn and Peter Boyle. Your Name, this is part of my anime journey. I think I watched this in 2020 for the first time, and really, really liked it. So another anime film that I enjoy. Zack Snyder's Justice League. I am on the record as saying that I enjoy this film. I watched it again this year for my Superman ranking, and I enjoyed it then too. I think that it is an improvement in every possible way on the theatrical cut of Justice League, and has some of my favorite moments in any superhero movie. When Flash takes off into the Speed Force with the music and everything else, that's one of my favorite moments from any superhero movie. So lest you say I'm a Zack Snyder hater, Zack Snyder's Justice League I like. I enjoy that movie. Almost at the end of the Blu-rays here, Catherine Bigelow, Zero Dark 30. I think this was the movie that brought us ripped Chris Pratt, which was kind of surprising, and also very, very interesting that they would take on the raid to get Osama bin Laden very shortly after it actually happened. Zodiac, a great film from David Fincher. Again, Jake Gyllenhaal, a great performance. Robert Downey Jr., a great performance. There's a scene in this movie where you think that the reporter may be in with the killer. That's one of the most tense scenes in any movie ever. Zombieland and Zombieland Double Tap Combo Pack. I think the first movie's better, but I don't mind either one. Those movies kind of get by on charisma. And the Z in my A to Z of Blu-rays is Zoolander, which had very poor timing because it came out in the fall of 2001 when a lot of people weren't ready to go see a comedy. But I think it's been redeemed in the long run because Zoolander, I think, is now considered a classic comedy, or at least a classic comedy of its time. So those are all my 4Ks and Blu-rays. I do still have, because I'm an old, some relics of the past. I haven't bought a DVD in over 20 years, but I do still have some DVDs of things that I never upgraded, or mainly just things that there's no reason to upgrade. So let's go through what I still have on DVD. It's a lot of TV. So I've got Chappelle's Show Season 1. I'm sure this is streaming on any number of streaming services, but I still have it on DVD. I have Chappelle's Show Season 2 similarly, and I'm pretty sure, I think they put out a third one, and I think I loaned it to somebody and lost it. Confidence. This movie has never been released, and I check every 3 months or so on any HD format, but it is a great little heist movie. I've been talking about it forever, starring Ed Burns and Andy Garcia and Rachel Weisz and Dustin Hoffman, and I'm still waiting for the day where they make it available on Blu-ray. The Daily Show Indecision 2004, because apparently I wanted to relive election coverage at some point, although I cannot overstate how big The Daily Show was for a college kid in 2004 during the elections. So it'd probably be kind of an interesting look back if I were to go back and watch it. This one is going to go bye-bye pretty soon. It's actually, or I think was pretty valuable until a few months ago. This is Dogma. Kevin Smith's, for a while, long-lost movie. It's now coming out in an HD format. It may already be out. I'm not sure exactly what day it comes out. It might have just come out. But this one gets to go away, and Dogma gets to get put on the HD shelf pretty soon. I'm excited about that. Speaking of Kevin Smith, An Evening with Kevin Smith, these were his live lectures and Q&As that they compiled into a DVD that I used to watch all the time. And An Evening with Kevin Smith 2, kind of the same thing, just in a second movie form. As I said, I've always been a fan of Kevin Smith. There used to be a website called Everything is Terrible, and they made a movie called Everything is Terrible, the movie, which is like just a bunch of crazy clips cut together, and I bought it for some reason. Extras, Ricky Gervais, the series post The Office. This is a really funny show. I'm sure it's streaming on HBO Max. It has to be, because that's where it aired. So I have Extras Season 1 and Extras Season 2, and I'm pretty sure there's a third season that I used to own, but once again, I think I loaned it to someone and never got it back, and that's why I don't loan out DVDs or Blu-rays, because you don't get them back. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This is the cartoon that I used to watch all the time when I was a kid. This is Volume 1. They used to come in these big DVD boxes, and that's why they used to take up a lot more space on the shelf. Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, Volume 1 and 2. This is not the U.S. version. This is the version back when it was airing in England, before it was all about screaming and shouting and all that stuff, which I like this version, but this is kind of like a kinder, gentler Gordon Ramsay. I mean, he still does Gordon Ramsay stuff, but I like the original version better. The Incredible Hulk, the Bill Bixby Show, the complete first season, which I was a big fan of when I was a kid. Then we have two movies, The Incredible Hulk Returns and The Death of the Incredible Hulk. These were both TV movies. Or I'm sorry, this is The Trial of the Incredible Hulk and The Incredible Hulk Returns. These were both TV movies. Thor's in one of them, Daredevil's in one of them. That's what we had. That's what we got for the MCU when we were kids. And then The Death of the Incredible Hulk, which was the last movie that Bill Bixby made as the Hulk. I used to love this version of Hulk, and that's kind of what helped to get me into Marvel Comics as a kid. I love this DVD. This is the works of director Michel Gondry. It's a bunch of his music videos and other stuff. If you've never seen Michel Gondry's music videos, they are fantastic. And at college parties, I used to just put this DVD on repeat on TV, and it was a great thing to have because people would just be like, it's like putting a piece of art up at a college party, but cooler. This is the original BBC The Office. This is the whole, I think, the two series plus the special, which when I saw that, again, that I saw it for the first time in college, and it blew my mind because I love that show. Quantum Leap, just the first season. Don't know why I don't have any of the other ones, but I just have the first season. If you haven't seen Quantum Leap, Scott Bakula plays a guy who travels in time, but he jumps into other people's bodies and has to solve their problems, and then jumps into somebody else's body. One of my favorite shows as a kid. Saturday Night Live, the complete first season. I have the first 5 seasons of SNL almost as like a historical document. Again, this is pre-streaming, so I didn't necessarily know that I would have unfettered access if I subscribed to some streaming service. It was like, well, if I don't have it on Blu-ray or DVD, there's going to be no way for me to get it. I'll never be able to access it. So I also have Saturday Night Live, the complete second season. Saturday Night Live, the complete third season. Saturday Night Live, the complete fourth season. And Saturday Night Live, the complete 5th season. And like when you put a whole season of DVDs or a whole season of a show on your shelf, this is how much shelf space it took up because DVDs are big and bulky. All right, this is an NBC Saturday morning show called Good Morning, Miss Bliss. And if you've never heard of Good Morning, Miss Bliss, but you think that guy on the cover looks awfully familiar, that's because in syndication, Good Morning, Miss Bliss was retroactively labeled what the show eventually became, which is Saved by the Bell. I used to watch Saved by the Bell for a minimum of 2 hours after school every single day. There was a 3-hour block rotating between channels. You could always catch an episode of Saved by the Bell between the hours of 4 and 6 o'clock, and I did every single day. I also have Saved by the Bell seasons 3 and 4, and I have Saved by the Bell the college years and the movies. So I've got the whole Saved by the Bell saga, at least with the original crew. This does not include, of course, the new series that I think they did 2 seasons of over on Peacock. Shattered Glass. I talk about this movie all the time. Hayden Christensen is excellent in this movie, and it is a great journalistic procedural film, much like All the President's Men and Spotlight. Peter Sarsgaard is fantastic in this movie, and was overlooked for all awards consideration. And it is still not available, to my knowledge, in HD, and that is a shame. It's a crime because this is a fantastic film, and oftentimes this is the one I'm advocating for. People are sick of hearing me talk about Shattered Glass because I've been talking about it since the Screen Junkies days because I don't hear anyone talking about it because I think it's hard to find, and it's so good. Speaking of having shows for historical relevance, The Simpsons, Season 1. Again, pre-Disney Plus. The only way to consistently watch old Simpsons episodes was to buy them on DVD. So I have The Simpsons Season 1. I have The Simpsons Season 2. I have The Simpsons Season 3. I have The Simpsons Season 4. And I have The Simpsons Season 5. And I think I bought the DVDs up through like Season 10. But honestly, a few years ago, it was just, when you look at the shelf space, it's like, enough already. How many seasons of The Simpsons do I need on physical media when they're streaming all of them on Disney Plus? So those DVDs may be tucked away somewhere, but I only keep the first 5 seasons on my shelf. This is another great TV show, Spaced. Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg made this before they did Shaun of the Dead. It sort of was their breakthrough project, but it's got like most of the cast from the Cornetto trilogy in there. It's a lot of dated, kind of early 2000s cultural references, but it's a very funny show. If you haven't seen Spaced and you like the Cornetto trilogy, I think that you would like that show as well. Spike Jonze. This is from the same makers that did the Michel Gondry compilation. This is a compilation of Spike Jonze's music videos and other films, and it's a different vibe, but no less impressive. Spike Jonze made a lot of really, really cool music videos. While The West Wing was on the air, Aaron Sorkin had another show on ABC called Sports Night, which was about basically a sports center type show. So he had 2 shows in prime time at the same time on 2 different networks. And this is very Sorkin-y. The writing can get a little too cute, but again, if you like The West Wing and you like that style and you want to see that in like a sports setting, then give Sports Night a shot. These were, I think, Target exclusives. So this is Stranger Things, the first season on Blu-ray, but it's done kind of like an old VHS box. And this is Stranger Things Season 2 on Blu-ray. That's also in an old VHS box. And I don't think they did the rest of them. I think they just did the first 2 seasons, but I just kind of like the aesthetic of it. It's a cool thing to have. Plus, anytime you have a Netflix show on physical media, as rare as Netflix movies on physical media are, Netflix shows on physical media, even more rare. This just goes to show you, I've got my Florida State gear all the time. This is a DVD that was made in 2003, I believe, that is just a compilation of the TV broadcast and interviews about one particular Florida State win over the University of Florida. We won 38-34, but it was one of the best college football games, I think, of all time. And as a student at the time, I said I must own this for historical purposes. So I've got that on DVD. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this is the animated show, the first several episodes. I watched these over and over when I was a kid. Ninja Turtles was huge. And this is Volume 2, featuring, 13 more episodes of the show, the animated series. And, the fact that it's still going is a real testament to that. This is the last movie I still have on DVD. I've only got about 4 that I haven't upgraded. And this is also not available that I can find in HD anywhere. What About Bob, starring Richard Dreyfuss and Bill Murray, which is a great 90s comedy, and it did well. I remember people talking about it, but it's just kind of faded away, and nobody's put it out in high definition, and I don't understand why, because this is one of Bill Murray's best comedic performances, and I feel like it's kind of getting lost to time because nobody's produced anything current or modern with What About Bob. And then we have X-Men, the animated series, basically the whole thing. So X-Men, the animated series, Volume 1. X-Men, the animated series, Volume 2. X-Men, the animated series, Volume 3. X-Men, the animated series, Volume 4. And X-Men, the animated series, Volume 5. I was very excited when these came out because I had not seen the show since I was a kid. So those are all the DVDs. One last thing, and then we're mercifully out of here, and that is a collection of some box sets that I have, and then we're done. I think this show has been longer than Titanic, the movie, so we're almost done. Hang on. All right, so these are not necessarily in alphabetical order. This is just going to be the order in which I grab them. The first one is this kind of neat collector set for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I think is a great Tarantino film. And I think this was sent around awards time, so it includes the movie and a booklet and a bunch of cool things. I think there's a record in there of that song that Leonardo DiCaprio does on the Variety show. This was put out in 2012, so it's about 10 years out of date. This is the James Bond 50th anniversary set. It had a blank spot in the booklet for discs for Skyfall. So whenever Skyfall was put out on Blu-ray, they were basically like, here's where you'll put it. So it comes in 2 different books, Bond 50, and you open each one up, and it's got the different discs inside, and yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I'm a James Bond fan. I watched all of these discs earlier this year, again, because I rewatched all the Bond movies. I am eventually going to do a ranking, but it just kind of fell by the wayside. It's written, but it's a very time-intensive production process to get that video done. So we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there. This is really cool. I'm not even going to put this up in the front because it would go off. This is Criterion's Godzilla first. Let's see. This is the Showa era films from 1954 to 1975. So it's got a bunch of really cool things, some write-ups about Godzilla, and then all the discs are inside here as well. So you've got all the different movies, and I just think it's a really cool package. And again, I was doing my Godzilla ranking, and I said, well, let's just get this Criterion set because it looks pretty cool. I like to justify purchasing physical media for myself. So Warner Brothers put out several box sets to commemorate their 100th anniversary, and this is one of them that was heavily discounted, I think 2 or 3 years ago. And so this is I think it was volume 1, and it's award winners. That's the theme of it, so it's kind of flips open like that. And you've got a little booklet. They all come in a little kind of a flip book type thing. And then you pull them out of the sleeves and stuff. So award winners, what's in this one? So it's Grand Hotel, Mutiny on the Bounty, Adventures of Robin Hood, Mrs. Miniver, Casablanca, Key Largo, A Streetcar Named Desire, Ben-Hur, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Bonnie and Clyde, Cool Hand Luke, Bullet, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Purple Rain, The Color Purple, Unforgiven, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, Mystic River, Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, Million Dollar Baby, The Departed, Argo, A Star is Born, and Judas and the Black Messiah. Like I said, I looked at all of the different sets that they put out, and they all had different themes, and this one was the one that had the least overlap with what I already owned, and also had movies in it that I would actually want to watch and enjoy. So that's one of the few super big box sets that I have. This is a Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse box set. It's got the first 2 movies, so Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, and then some cool collector stuff. This is one of the Criterion sets that I have that I really haven't dug into yet. It's World of Wong Kar-wai, and I've watched, I think, only one of the movies out of this set, and I need to watch the rest because I keep hearing about how great Wong Kar-wai movies are. So I got this at a 50% off sale, but I haven't really gotten too deep into it. I need to. And then finally, I guess it's appropriate considering that I am a big Batman fan. This is the Batman TV show box set. They still sell the TV show, but I don't think they sell this particular box set anymore. It was kind of a limited edition. It comes with a Batmobile replica inside of it, kind of a Hot Wheels car, and then you open it up, and there's some cards in here, some playing cards, and then a booklet, and then all of the discs are inside in their own little booklet. So it's pretty much what you probably get when you buy the regular set. It's just you're paying for the packaging and stuff. But I was very desperate to get this because I loved the 60s Batman show when I was a kid, and I really wanted to own it. So there you are. And that's it. I mean, yes, there's these VHS tapes and stuff that I have in the background, but those are for set decoration. Really what I wanted to do with this video is to show you my physical media collection. I honestly did not think it would take however long it's been, 3+ hours to get through all of it. I underestimated both the size of my collection and how much I want to yap about it. So if you have stuck around till this point, thank you so much. And I will say just in general about physical media, I've been reading some stuff online saying that younger people, your Gen Z and even some Gen Alpha folks, are making a swing back to physical media, kind of like how my generation made a swing back to vinyl. And one of the reasons why is that streaming used to be this limitless thing where you had access to everything. And now, number one, streaming has gotten more expensive. Number two, you never really know where the rights are going to be. So Star Trek is moving off Netflix and it goes to Paramount Plus, and sometimes they pull a show altogether and you can't access it. Streaming has lost a lot of its appeal in the last 5 years or so. And that's why I love physical media, because I like to know that if I love a movie, that I have a copy that's mine that can't be taken away. The digital rights can't be taken away. It won't get pulled off a streaming service. I can pull it off the shelf anytime I want. I can pop it in. The picture quality is better. The audio quality is better. And it's also just great to have a collection. I mean, when I stand in front of my shelf and I look at my physical media, it is not just a library of movies, but it is also tied to memory. It's tied to my experiences and my experiences seeing those movies and people tied to those movies. And it's very personal to me, which is why, I love it so much. Yes, there are movies like X-Men Apocalypse and Wonder Woman 1984. I'm like, why are those on there? But they're all on there for some reason or other. Even if it's just because I am a heinously addicted, at times, completionist. So thank you for watching this incredibly long video and taking interest in what I have on my movie shelf. Like I said, I did this first video, I think 5+ years ago. I don't know if I'm going to do this whole thing again. I doubt that I'll go through it A to Z ever again on the channel. I'll probably just try to keep track of what I add and then maybe do an update video every 2 to 4 years or something like this. So this is probably the last time I will go through it all, and I appreciate you sticking around and listening to me talk about it and maybe comparing your own collection. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments below. If you think there's somebody else that might want to engage with a, let's say, 3.5 hour physical media collection video, share it with them. But most of all, thank you for committing what I have to believe is half a work day to watching me talk about these movies. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.